Fernandez, using Ford power, won the first two Bridgestone Potenza 500s in 1998 and 99.
Notice the difference. This is, on board with Dario again. Also the visor cam, because this is mounted to the car, you don't get the tip of the head at all, or any of the movement of the head. Big difference, even though they're coming from within about a foot of each other. Yeah, Dario likes to lean his head a little bit. He's actually packed it into that one spot. He can't straighten up if he wants to counteract the G-loads.
They use those bolsters to the driver's right.
You can feel how big that bump is getting in turn 3, too. I mean, it's a big shot, especially when you're braking, downshifting right there in the same area.
The asphalt has a little bit better grip, so we're trying to look at it kind of like a rain track. We're waiting till the exact last possible moment to turn this car in, keep the grip from the asphalt before he crosses over to the cement. Calvin?
Quick update on the Reynard situation. The players, boys, really struggled, almost 2 seconds off the pace in the morning practice session. The problem with the Reynard, when you get to a bumpy racetrack, you have to lift the car off the deck, run a higher ride height, and that really spoils the aerodynamics, particularly when you're running the car soft. What it does, it makes the downforce very inconsistent and very hard for the drivers to drive the car on the edge. So the team did make a real big geometry change between the practice session and this afternoon's qualifying session. They still seem pretty struggling out here this afternoon, not happy with the balance of the car, saying that the cars are rolling over too much right now with the grip level that they have even.
On board with Bruno Junqueira, as you see, less than 23 minutes to go in the session. Let's see if we can take a ride with a two-time pole sitter in 2002.
Saw him creating some space for himself to start the lap. He's on the clock now. Again, I mentioned the walls at the apexes. The way the courses have evolved, like Long Beach, for example, they've pulled those walls back for line of sight. And the purist in me actually likes it a lot more this way. There's no penalty. There's a penalty on the exit with the wall, but the inside, if you're off by 6 inches or so, you just ride it up on the curb. 6 of the 9 corners here have a wall right on the apex. Bruno's one of the guys, he alluded to his style being that he likes to carry a lot of speed into the corner. That slick patch of concrete and the wider arc that Scott talked about penalizes a guy like Bruno more. Look at it, just barely picking up the throttle and just skating right around. The off-camber starts right there, right at the apex, and you see as soon as he crosses that camber, he gets into a huge slide. The road is falling away. Most street courses, that camber is in the middle, and so it doesn't go sideways until halfway out to the exit. Because that's such a big thoroughfare, all the lanes that they're using for the course go one direction, so all the rain drains to the right. The pit wall is in the center.
Change. Tagliani now goes underneath Adrian Fernandez, who seemed to bobble slightly there. And now it's Tagliani who opens up a quick gap on the field.
Now there's a case where they obviously have their strategy and he's trying to get on clear track and really build up some time. The guys in the back, they're kind of an unknown. Where are they going to come out? It's hard to say if Adrian doesn't have a problem because Tags is just streaking away. Nobody else is coming by yet.
Let's get more from Derek Daly.
Bob, it is a problem with this traction control. Don Halliday, who is so focused, said he doesn't really want to talk because he's watching the monitor here. They have radioed to Adrian, as we heard on our radios, to begin to play with the traction control. He cannot accelerate off the corners as cleanly as he needs to keep those quicker guys behind him.
Well, he's definitely losing all kinds of ground to new.
Because 25 years ago we began.
And you know what? Imagine Jimmy Vasser says he's one of his mates.
What can you add to an interview like that? On board with the champion, Cristiano Matta. Now here's a look at the pole progression over the years, key years for this race. Back in 1997, Mauricio Gugelmin went 240.942 miles an hour, and that was a world record. Then came the Hanford device, that aerodynamic barn door that hangs off the rear wing, meant to slow the cars, punch a bigger hole in the air for passing. Scott Pruitt managed to handle it to the tune of a pole at 233 miles an hour, crept up another couple of miles an hour the next year. Then Gilles de Ferran 2 years ago went 241.428, and he was hanging on for dear life the whole way, I can tell you, before a big boost reduction in these cars brought last year's pole down by about 12 miles an hour. But one way or another, these cars absolutely fly around here.
They sure do, and that Hanford device is really a pretty ingenious device. The big challenge is if you...
Great place to be from.
I'm staying away from names entirely. You just keep going.
But you know what? And for those of you watching through our visor view here, I know it's easy to see. You see him gear changing, but that is actually right in front of his nose is the blue fireproof material on his helmet right here. That's all fireproof. This is his visor strip here. This basically, not only does it carry the cool sponsorship, but they use it as a sun shield, literally like a sun shield on your vehicle. If the sun comes down too low, he would put it down here, down lower. So a great onboard view here from our visor cam on Paul Tracy.
Dotting the I's and crossing the T's. How about eyeballing a small bit of deflection on the upper control arm and reinforcing it before the start of the race? Awesome by Newman Haas.
That is attention to detail. We are working lap number 32, so we expect pit stops this time around.
The other team's joke, Newman Haas.
More tires than fuel, Chris. More tires than fuel.
The other team's joke, NHR, Newman Haas Racing, stands for no hurry because they are always the last ones to leave at night.
So 7 and 8. 2 turns from the pit in.
Because he has pit choice, he's at the end, so he doesn't have to worry about what happened in Long Beach where he was coming out when other people were coming into the pit.
50-mile-an-hour pit lane speed limit. The race leader is in. Calvin Fish awaits him.
We just spoke to Peter Gibbons. We expect no changes in this.
On board now with Dario Franchitti, currently in 4th. We have less than 8 minutes to go in the session right now. And Franchitti with only 7 laps in the book of his allotted 15.
All the cars are streaming out on the track behind Dario. Dario is probably the first one to go. Hopefully, all of them will be out of the pit lane and up to speed before he gets around to take the green flag for the start of his 3rd lap.
And before they do that, let's get quickly to Scott Pruitt.
Down here in Ray Hall's pit, and if you get a chance to look at this screen up here, you can see
What happened? But that's
Got a quick look at Alex Tagliani. We now have 4 cars on the lead lap. This is Townsend Bell, who hasn't slowed down much after that heavy contact with the wall right there. No sign of any problem at the right front.
shifting up 1 gear, down to 1 and 2.
Pull another gear right here.
Oh, it's just such a great shot.
Dario Franchitti.
I just love to sit and watch this shot. This is as close as you'll ever get to feeling exactly what it's like to drive one of these cars.
Minus 4 Gs. Each of 4 corners for 201 laps. Notice the helmet doesn't move hardly at all.
A little bit too late, the back end comes out. And we're on board with Kenny. We saw you boarded the last lap. He had a really good one going, caught a car, said the heck with this, didn't finish the lap, backed off, created another gap, and here he is on it again.
Plunging downhill toward turn 10, left side of your screen. Coming up on 2 minutes to go in the session.
See where he's at. Nope, he's over 7/10 behind, so that's not going to get it done.
See what he's got at start finish. Nope. He remains in 2nd place. We saw Tony Kanaan slow briefly to get a clear piece of racetrack. Coming up on 1.5 minutes to go now. And Jimmy Vasser has improved his time. He is now at 1 minute 10.612 seconds, up to 15th on the grid. So Patrick Carpentier, who is on track right now, is the only driver who has not improved from yesterday's first round.
I can't tell you how frustrating it is for these guys to have their tires at their peak beyond a good lap and not be able to get one in. Paul Tracy's been lighting up the radios. giving plugs to his sponsors, F King this, F King that. And it is very, very frustrating because you think you have the car to get it done, but you just don't get a chance to show it. It's the same for everyone, but some guys are better and more fortunate at finding a clear spot.
Brack 3/10 off at the top of the corkscrew. He slows one more time. Less than a minute to go now. He'll have one more hot lap to start. He has 4 laps remaining. Effectively, 3 of them are useful, but it appears that Kenny Brack will call it a day and settle for second.
This has also.
Quick check with race control as you go on board with Adrian Fernandez. It was a legal start.
Was a legal start on board. Look at the white button on Fernandez' steering wheel right by his right thumb. The white button there is his traction control unit. Here it is right here. That's traction control. Why would they use that? Believe it or not, exiting the pits. They want to have complete control of the traction and don't get themselves in trouble.
And he just went to that button before taking the gear up one and then down one. We should talk a little bit about this idea of having 2 top gears in the race car, Derek, and shifting both into and out of the corners.
Basically, here the wing package is controlled. They have less downforce than they've had in years past. Less downforce means they cannot maintain the momentum or the high speed through these corners, so they need a gear for the corners to keep the engine up on peak power. Of course, with low downforce, they simply fly down the straights almost 200 miles an hour. That's why right there you see Fernandez select a second gear. And Bob, even without pit stops on an oval track, they'll do more than 1,000 changes.
On board, looking through the visor of Paul Tracy.
And look at the crack in the visor here. That is an indication it's getting a bit hot inside. You crack the visor to get some nice cool air. Street racing in particular is by far physically the most difficult form of racing.
Keep in mind, these are high downforce cars. No power steering on these beasts. With a lot of tire.
On board with Tagliani, we have also a suspension camera on board Tagliani's. Now you don't see, this is down at Princess Gate, you don't see that much suspension movement even in the braking zone.
These cars are so stiff. Home games. Back on board with Franchitti.
A lot of revs on that downshift. Put it into gear a little bit sooner maybe than normal, or maybe the gearbox skipped a gear because you heard the engine rev and the lights on the steering wheel light up with a mechanical over rev.
There's the sun I was talking about.
Same thing there.
Welcome back on board with Paul Tracy as he gets set to begin his first hot lap of this final qualifying session. The Trans Am Series for the BF Goodrich Tires Cup opens this weekend here in Long Beach. Check out the Johnson Controls 100 Saturday the 20th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Speed Channel. And we are qualifying with Paul Tracy.
You can see his visor is a little bit cracked. Sometimes some of the guys are putting little blocks under the visor so it doesn't close all the way. The speeds are so closed with no airflow that you're breathing hard and you start fogging your own visor. Around the fountain turn. And notice how much the guys have their hands on the shifters. Other than when they go into 7th gear, there's really hardly enough time to even reach for a tear off or anything like that. It's right back to the shift knob.
Say earlier today, we have to do something dramatic. Across the start-finish line, Tracy was 9th quick yesterday. He remains there, and his first hot lap comes in at 1:11.
Roommate, leading Bruno Junqueira. They live together in Miami. They're the 2 great personalities of the Champ Car season here.
We see over the last few laps how Junqueira has closed up. He obviously likes the way his car is working.
Real delicate touch here. Down one gear. Keeps this gear. You can sense and feel how delicate it is, and then it all breaks loose right here. Scream the thing. Bruno Junqueira almost became the Williams Formula One driver until they tested Jenson Button. Frank Williams then called Chip Ganassi, as he did with Montoya, said, can you take him for a couple of years? We can't use him right now.
It certainly could be. And what's crazy to me is that one of the first years we came down here, that was the issue. I mean, we drove straight over the curbs. In fact, in '95, I was chasing Jimmy Vasser. He was running one. I was running position 2. On lap 2, he cut over the top, cut the pylons, and it actually went up and stuck in my roll hoop. He cut it and stuck it right up in my roll hoop. It was unbelievable.
You were on board there with Dario. That wasn't what we were talking about. He went dead straight. He couldn't get the car stopped, and he went through the escape road that they have for them to drive through. If you do that in the race or qualifying, they will dock that line.
It is still 2.5 seconds as they go by here on board now.
It's with Tony Kanaan. Yes, he's dropped a couple of spots since his pit stop.
And actually it was Bruno Junqueira who we saw pass Tony earlier, not Kenny Brack.
But look at his steering wheel. That's the dash readout that Patrick Carpentier is having trouble with.
Right here. Just saw Tony pull the tear off from his visor. And actually you can see there's the rear view mirrors. You don't necessarily get a full focus on the car behind you. You get a color scheme. The mirror fills with the general color of the car following you because everything bounces around so much, and the color, of course, tells you who they are and where they are.
With Adrian Fernandez, and the leaderboard is changing constantly. Tony Kanaan has just moved up into 3rd, and Michel Jourdain has posted a lap at 119.326 seconds, just over 95.4 miles an hour, consolidating that 1/10 of a second lead over Cristiano de Matta, who will not go away. He just turned his quickest lap on his 9th and most recent.
And Jourdain ran another lap that would have, he's run 3 laps quicker than de Matta's best. So and he's also, like you pointed out earlier, run more laps than anybody else. So I think in terms of people out tricking themselves, the guy who are running short runs might be stuck with not enough time to get some heat. Let's go down to Calvin.
Well, Michael Andretti came into his pit just shy,
But we'll see what we can do tomorrow. Guys are just complaining of lack of grip, and they just want, in a situation like that, the driver just overdrives the car, trying to get the best out of it. And we need to sit down and look at our data and see if we can guess a little bit better for tomorrow.
Now, has Paul done any running on the road courses with the Lola yet?
No, this is his first outing. In fact, Michael's first outing in this Lola. We went to Mid-Ohio with Michael, but we got rained out, so he didn't get to run. So, but we're a little confused because we did have a good test with Dario at Mid-Ohio, a very good test, and we come here and we're completely out to lunch. So.
He just spun. Paul just spun coming on the front straight. Their problems continue. Let's go a little further down with Derek and Chip Ganassi. Derek?
With Chip here, who's watching his 3 drivers. Chip, you have the whole world covered here.
Whoops, things are changing as we go on board. Cristiano de Matta, and you are riding on the brake duct of the car.
It's on the inside of the left front wheel. You can see the nose, the tip of the nose, just off to the right edge of the camera, looking out over the front wing, into turn 1, up over the curb, out next to the wall, approaching the fountain.
Topped by Bruno Junqueira in the 58-second zone at 58.939 seconds. The lap record here, as we ride with Dario Franchitti, 57.738 seconds for the current 1.969-mile configuration at Portland, set back in 2000 by Helio Castroneves with Team Penske. 57.738 seconds. Of course, that was with a more powerful car than we have this year since the turbo boost reduction. Onto the front straightaway comes the Scott.
And we heard Dario talk about how the finesse was so important here and that how the aggression actually gets you into trouble. That is true with the exception of 2 spots. Aggression actually does buy you a little bit under braking for the festival corners and the fast left-hander at the end of the back straightaway. The tough part as a driver, and I always struggle with this at this track, is snapping back and forth. Just when you get really flowing through the infield, you leave a little bit on the table in those other 2 spots. So the guys that really have this place wired are the guys that are super smooth and just take what the car gives you, like Dario said, and are able to switch back into kind of attack mode for those other 2 corners.
Let's ride and listen.
This left-hander up here is the one that you just click it down. Most of the guys click it down 1 gear on entry and then back to the gas. A tremendous amount of speed up over the curb on the left. A little bit of traction control. You heard it clicking in right there on the exit of the final corner. When the engine goes quiet there under braking, that's actually rear wheel lockup, stopping the rear tires, and that stops the engine momentarily, and then it actually bump starts itself when you release the pressure on the brake pedal.
A moment ago, we showed you a graphic that showed Franchitti in 4th. He is actually 5th. He was bumped by Alex Tagliani's
4 tires and fuel.
This is it. This is the race about to unfold here. If they can make up positions in the pit lane, they can win this race.
And now they're calculating at the known fuel flow rate. How long will we have to stop? Let's stop no longer than we have to get the fuel on board we need to go the rest of the way.
And can Dario Franchitti's boys put him ahead?
Bruno, put it on the marks, buddy. Hammer the marks.
Of Bruno or Cristiano?
In front of us, Bruno. Follow the Matta down. We're just waving at you.
It's an interesting thing. You have both sides pointing the finger back at each other. Lola's saying it's the team assembly problem. The teams are saying it's the O2 upright. Target Chip Ganassi's stayed with the 01, as has Newman Haas. Team Cool Green tried to, but could not get enough parts. So they're running that O2 upright where the bearing is a little bit iffy, apparently.
Let's listen in as Franchitti drives. Let's look down.
See him resting his hand there, giving his left hand a little bit of a break. You know, if you're not careful and you're not conscious of it, you can hold on to that steering wheel so tight you'll be worn out in a hurry.
Straightaways are nearly a half-mile long, but you eat them up in a hurry at 220 miles an hour.
To be the best.
On board with Paul Tracy.
This is going to be a good one.
Yeah. Win or lose, it will be exciting.
Nice smooth turning arc through 7 and 8.
This is his first out lap, so he's very little temp in the tires. You can see how much they have to slow down. Not a lot of grip.
So much shifting. The drivers spend a lot of time steering with one hand here.
Absolutely, and plus you don't want to warm up your tire too quick, because if you warm up the rear tire too fast, you know, you have too much understeer. Need to just have a lot of confidence, warm up the front end, and just go for it, you know, like on the 4th and 5th lap.
One thing I've always found, too, if you get too much heat in, you actually heat the outside without getting enough heat through the carcass and the sidewalls.
Tony Kanaan apparently on a hot lap through the visor cam. Currently 5th. Back on board with Paul Tracy. This is the turn 10 complex. .069 seconds last time by.
It's still on a kind of a warming up lap. phase that you don't really know what the car is going to do. You're just waiting and hoping that your front end is going to be exactly where you want to be, but you don't have a chance to check it out. You need to go.
That's the definition of commitment, right? When you head down into turn one?
Absolutely. You know, commitment is everything in motor racing.
Watch the suspension. Very little movement. The Bridgestone's doing most of the suspension work. .247 that time by. 11th lap. 4th in this run.
It looks like he still has a little bit to go, so the next couple of laps are going to...
Asaka, Vice President of Honda Performance Development. Those photos were distributed to all the Honda drivers. And they chose where they wanted to carry them in this race.
Good shot on board with Townsend Bell. Behind Cristiano Matta.
Started 10th. He's moved up one spot to 9th.
Downshifts twice. You saw that.
You could hear when he put it in a top gear there that the rev drop is only probably 300 or 400 RPMs. They stacked the economy runs. Now economy is not an issue. The fuel has been calculated so that you can run full rich all the time.
Problem is finding the grip. On the concrete patch where the track broke up a year ago. See if we can hear the traction control at work. That ratcheting. 150 miles an hour down to about 60. Fastest part of the racetrack, 175 miles an hour.
There's an accordion effect, which even a 1 second gap at speed looks the same as a 1 second gap up at the lower speed. But I think Dario is closing in under braking, both in the hairpin and in the stadium complex there at the end.
In the books. Now here's our visor view camera. Down the corkscrew we go with Paul Tracy. Right into the teeth of the wind at that point.
Yeah, right when you come out from under the bridge in turn 9, the wind hits you full bore, and what usually happens in that situation, it hits the front first, and so it tends to, gives you an increase in overall downforce when you nose into the wind. It usually pins the front fractionally before it pins the rear. So I don't expect it to be a problem, but that if there's a place where they're feeling it, that would probably be it.
Ready hairpin, headed toward turn 3. The wall on the driver's right was moved back about 3 feet at that corner. Under the Bridgestone Bridge. Turn 4. Now the corners get increasingly quick. Woo. Here comes turn 6. Great corner.
Now this is where the incident happened this morning, and Christian was in that little rise, in that little dip that Paul just crested, and when he came over the top, Christian's car was there virtually stopped, and he had just enough time to yank the wheel to the right. And I said they were both incredibly lucky. That was after being incredibly unlucky, and then Alex just kind of shrugged it off, saying, oh yeah, well, it was a big hit. Well, that car was comprehensively destroyed. And it's amazing the nonchalance that these guys, I don't know if it's denial or what, I used to do the same thing. So I guess if I used a little introspection, I could figure it out. But it's amazing that after something like that, they catch their breath and it's like, where's the spare? Let's go.
Paul Tracy moves into P3 behind Max Papis and Mario. Welcome back live to Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca. You ride along with Kenny Brack, who has the point from yesterday's first round of qualifying and a guaranteed front row starting position in tomorrow's Bridgestone Grand Prix of Monterrey. But he is not the provisional pole sitter any longer. Cristiano de Matta from Newman Haas Racing has bumped him. Brack currently second, trying to claw that pole position back. Patrick Carpentier remains third. Tony Kanaan remains fourth. Alex Tagliani has moved up from 7th to 5th. Scott Dixon from 15th up to 6th. Bruno Junqueira was 6th. He is now 7th. Christian Fittipaldi was 5th. He is now 8th. Townsend Bell has gone from 8th to 9th. And Michel. The last thing the Canadian needed. On board with Michael Andretti. Dario Franchitti, second gear chicane. On board with Cristiano de Matta.
Point, because they can see so much better than we can as drivers.
Now, Scott, that explains a lot of our battles. I didn't know you were blind.
On board with Paul Tracy. Let's watch and listen.
Jump Paul up to P3.
Turn 3's at the end of this straightaway. There it is. 0.186 seconds off of the pole sitters split to that point. We had a brief yellow flag for an off and on by Alex Tagliani in one of the players' cars. And we expect to see more of that as this season unfolds. Local yellow flags preventing us from going to a full course caution. As you ride with Adrian Fernandez, here's more from Scott Pruitt.
I had a chance to talk to a number of the guys following up on what Calvin had to say. This is the first year where they have to use it on road courses as well as ovals. A lot of the guys over the winter, they've taken modified them. Some are specially built for them only. Really trying to get them comfortable. This is a huge safety device. One other quick note, as I'm sitting down here right in front of Jimmy Vasser, all the guys are getting saddled up. So we're going to see some action real soon. Bob?
All right, thanks, Scott. We're riding with Adrian Fernandez. Let's watch and listen. Shut it down. There we go. While we watched, last year's Rookie of the Year, Scott Dixon and Tony Kanaan have been batting provisional pole position around. Things are getting interesting. Stay with us.
Cristiano, that's not going to happen. But where he slots in, how to make the best out of this, can he run quick enough and take advantage of the clear track on this stretch and the next one after the other guys stop on 68 to see where that puts him in the final order? Can he get up, maybe salvage a third, fourth, or fifth? If he keeps running like this, he might be able to.
Might get a podium out of it. This is the visor cam on Paul Tracy. You heard Derek talk about what a mature racer he has become. Given all that he has to do in the race car, performing at the peak of his physical powers. Remember, these cars have no power steering.
he is also constantly thinking about where he is in the race, and he is considering pit strategy while he's driving around here at over 100 miles an hour in average speed. Leader on board with Dario once again.
Now these guys are just thinking, you know what, we're a quarter way, pushing to halfway. Let's be smart. Let's be heads up. We still got a lot of race left. Let's just be smart right now.
That's the feeling I get from Dario, just right in the hunt. I mean, he's a lap down because of that thing, but really running a nice, big picture type of race. Tony and Paul up front. Bruno, you said, is looking a little more patient, but Tony and Paul up front are saying, hey, let's take it to these guys. And that is a thing. If you can really bury some guys, get a bunch of guys a lap down, then you can back it off and cruise. So you've got two different schools of thought on that.
While we watch this action, spare a prayer for the family of one of our Speed Channel colleagues, Bob Aiken, two-time winner of the 12 Hours at Sebring and a veteran of vintage sports car competition, critically injured in a practice crash during the Walter Mitty historic weekend at Road Atlanta in Georgia. He's in the hospital, critical condition. Our thoughts are with his son, Bobby, who works for Speed Channel, his wife, Ellen, the entire Aiken family, and all their friends. On board with Townsend Bell.
All these guys just kind of settling into a groove right now, talking back to the pits, talking back to your engineers, going, okay, what kind of changes are you going to make? Because on pit stops, you're really limited. You can make a front wing change, which is fairly quick. You can make a tire pressure change. A little bit of traffic coming up here.
Getting around to Matta, and he gets, I think that's Toro right in front of him.
This is for position.
I think right front of his nose there, the shot cover keeps popping up. Let's get more from Calvin Fish.
Well, I think you can really sum up the Team Cool Green's reaction down here with disgust in Dario Franchitti's pit. They looked at the replay and they just couldn't believe that Paul had made that move on the opening lap. They've struggled all weekend, but they realized anything can happen. If Cristiano Di Matta doesn't finish this one, Dario still had a chance to close in the points race. Let's see what the story is down in Tracy's pit. Scott?
And a follow-up to Paul. We heard he might be getting a drive-through. I talked to Barry Green. He talked to Paul, asking about what kind of damage. He says, I think we just got up in the air pretty big. I don't think there's any damage. The car feels pretty good right now. I'll call in if I find out anything, but so far, so good.
All right, thanks, guys. We are working lap number 5, which means the first of the 3 pit windows is now open. A 3-stop race, 32-lap maximum run before you must pit in this 100-lap race. Very difficult athletic achievement. On board with Kanaan.
Over the blind brow, see it all over the top. What you see here is constant changes to the hand position, correcting the steering all the time.
Look at Tony Kanaan's grip, particularly that left hand with one finger hooked outside the steering wheel, at the top of the steering wheel. Very unusual.
See the mirror right here. You don't necessarily get a focus when you look into that rear view mirror. All you need to see is a color scheme. When you see a color scheme, you have a pretty good idea who might be coming up behind you.
Let's listen as he rockets down the back stretch and goes up through the sequential gearbox. Now here is Brack. Excuse me, that's Bruno Junqueira following Kanaan. Brack's teammate.
To give you an idea how fast the front runners are running as you're on board with Tony Kanaan. Tony's in the high 9s and 9.8. Patrick Carpentier is the fastest man on the track at a 1 minute 9.4.
Jan Bikas has more on Tony Kanaan.
Yeah, and I think each time you go on board to watch Tony Kanaan, watch his hand position and how hard he works. He said he's in great shape. We've talked about his triathlete experience. He said it all has to do with how your car is working. He says you can be in great shape, but if you have to muscle the car, if it's not handling well, he says it doesn't matter how good a shape you're in, it just completely wears you out.
See the running order at the top left of your screen.
Tagliani is still shown in 8th place. There's the 2 gear changes for Tracy. Tracy's one of those guys, when you make him mad, suddenly you better stand back because he will try anything in the book, and he is Mr. Aggressive and Mr. Excitement. Notice the wheel as he goes down the straight. The wheel is not straight. See the way it's at a slant like this? Pure driver preference. He likes the wheel to be in a certain position and his hands as he rounds the corner to get it that way. It points to the right as he goes down this straight. You see the white line down on the inside?
That also gave you a good idea, driver's eye level, how flat this track is. Very little in the way of telltale markers for your braking and turn in.
It's just a sea of concrete out here. This is where that transition is, bang, right there. See, it's upsetting the car drastically. Right after that, they're trying to keep it on the road, and they're about to go to the brakes for turn 8.
This is only the second lap for Kanaan. As we spoke earlier, getting these Bridgestone Potenzas up to temperature for an optimum lap could take as many as 6 laps. Scott Pruitt has more on Kanaan.
That's exactly right. I was talking to Tony a little earlier. We talked about the car. But the other fact you guys have to remember is the fact that they changed the Lola very recently. He says, you know what, we're finally getting enough miles under this car to really start getting a feel for what we're looking for.
On board with Dario Franchitti.
And this will give you an idea just how bumpy these road tracks can be. He's had bounce and braking. Down to second gear, slowest corner on the racetrack. Now, this is where he's using a high gear. See, now down changes. The high gear so as you don't break those rear wheels away, despite the fact that they have traction control. Closing up on Tagliani. Tagliani still is keeping that distance all over Vasser.
Papis goes underneath, the Italian taking over from Vasser in the 13th spot. Vasser drops back to 14th.
Bruno on the radio has said it's so loose he wants to come in as soon as possible. The team have told him no, wait. He has 7 more laps, which is only 7 miles, to try and hang on to that thing, but it's way, way too loose for Bruno to mount a charge on anybody.
Interesting story.
It trains quite a bit during the race last year, but part of it was because it was almost dark, so the track got very cold and actually went very loose. So it'll be interesting to see what it does this year. It has more grip than last year because they resurfaced it, so the surface is definitely better.
All right, Michael Andretti very happy with the balance of the car right now. We have one of his teammates out there on the track right now, PT. Let's see what he can do.
Let's see if he's flat. Pretty flat, pretty flat.
Isn't that like pregnant? Either you are or you aren't.
That's exactly right. You can't get away with anything with all the data. He said, I'm flat. Go back and look at the data.
He did 3 warm-ups?
Nope. Okay. I don't think so.
Paul Tracy, 4th quick with his first lap.
This is such a great view.
It's pretty steady. And he moves up 1 spot with a better second lap, 25.03.
And get back up to speed on cold tires. That will be the measure. You saw that hero outlap that Paul Tracy did, only lost 1 spot to those guys on hot tires. Was able to hold off Oriol Servia. Right now, he is 38.2 seconds behind Matta. So those 2 guys are really racing each other, and now Matta's in traffic coming up on the back of Junqueira.
See the biggest movers in the race thus far. Max Papis, 11 places. Paul Tracy, 10 spots. Scott Dixon, last year's Rookie of the Year, has moved up 8 positions. Tora Takagi and countryman Shinji Nakano of Japan, 7 and 6 spots, respectively. Of the 3 engine manufacturers in the Kart FedEx Championship Series, Honda, Ford, and Toyota have all led today. Toyota is the only engine that Cristiano de Matta has. Back on track and on board with Townsend Bell, continuing his great run. Here's our Bridgestone race summary. The leader is Tony Kanaan, 51 laps led. Remember, there's a championship bonus point for leading the most laps. 2 cars, we know it's 3 cars out of the race now with Max Papis' exit, in addition to Jimmy Vasser and Paul Tracy. Ooh, little...
That onboard you shot, you saw him get in a little bit hot and wash up a little bit in the middle, and he had to wait a little bit to pick up the throttle, and you saw just that little delay. He was closing on the Junqueira in front of him and just gapped it right back out.
There's a look out the back as he comes under attack. Alex Tagliani on the march. He's had a difficult weekend. Getting up onto a possible podium position would be great for the Canadian. And Dario Franchitti, first of the cars, a lap down. We'll be right back.
Keep it gathered up, feed some steering into it. You're going off the road. And the gap down to 6.4 seconds. Kenny Brack in clear traffic or without traffic is starting to reel in Cristiano de Matta. So Cristiano has to balance aggression with patience. He's got enough lead to work with, but he doesn't want to let Kenny right up onto his gearbox.
Here's turn 6 where Carpentier went off. Here comes the corkscrew. Quick, short shift.
Shifting up to third and then banging into fourth immediately. The cars gain speed so quickly in that fast downhill left-hander that...
This guy is fast everywhere.
It's amazing how much the year of seasoning has done between last year and this year. Did a nice job, won at Elkhart Lake, but this year he's been a factor at every single type of course. You can see the confidence growing almost with every weekend, and he really has shaped himself into a bona fide big-time star and dirt tracker.
This is his third lap. His fourth or probably his fifth will be his quickest as he comes around to cross the start-finish line. Let's take a lap with him and listen. The start finish line, 62.075 seconds. Second quick in the session, but because Adrian Fernandez's front row spot is locked in from yesterday's performance, Bruno Junqueira is currently third on the provisional grid. Calvin Fish.
Well, Scott Dixon rolls into his pit. He was told on the radio his fuel was marginal, so they had to bring him in. They're going to be top.
Of exactly what setup everybody else has on their cars. They might be also close to dry as well.
Just amazing as the cards flash under our announce position. They are still able to extract water from what appears to be a nearly dry front straight.
Still see a lot of great shot right there on Dario's shield. You see a lot of water on there. That's just water getting sucked right off the racetrack, and it looks like it might. Wow, if it's not raining, it looks like it can rain any moment.
You see Dario Franchitti's lap time, 2:02. Compared with the qualifying times, a full 30 seconds faster. Calvin Fish.
Well, two teams that we know definitely went a lot softer on their setup are the Players team. They said they had nothing to lose. The cars really hadn't been good in the dry, so they went basically full wet with their setup. And also Team Cool Green. They said the cars were abysmal this morning.
This is bad here. Now look at his hands. Watch the kickback. See the kickback on our camera and their steering. These bumps are so severe on the road, it actually kicks the steering out of the hand of the drivers, and that makes it physically more and more difficult to do these long races, and this race is longer than normal.
The
can see how much shifting they do, how much steering with just the left hand. About 54 miles an hour through turn 1. Then up through the gearbox, hard on the gas, up over 177 miles an hour.
Cross over the runways. This is one of the taxiways. The main runways are either side, I believe. This is the end of the main runway right here. Big crown on the road. Big crown right here. You've got to drive up over the top of it.
Under yellow, just trying to open up that opportunity.
Hard to believe Dario Franchitti is still looking for his first Kart FedEx Championship Series oval track victory. All his wins have come on road courses and street circuits.
Tell you what, with the way he's run this race, without that mistake, he'd be
running back in 16th spot, on board with Michael Andretti.
You saw how quickly Tagliani had closed back up on the back of Adrian Fernandez. Now on board with Michael, watch these concrete patches. A lot more grip on that red concrete than there is on the asphalt. So what guys do is they try to get a little bit more of the work, so to speak, done. They really ask the car to turn more there rather than the proportional ideal line because there's so much more grip. Another one here on the inside of turn 2. I guess that fast lap by Tracy answers the question on whether the rear suspension is okay. But he's gonna have a totally clear track. Now, if you get a yellow, all that disadvantage of the yellow of the previous stop. Look at this, Tony Kanaan off the pace.
Someone said Michael Andretti has eased up in his elder years. I don't think so. Andretti has not cracked the top 10 on the timesheets all weekend thus far. Final corner. Michael Andretti started 16th. He is up to 11th. So the order is now Fernandez, Tagliani, Franchitti, Fittipaldi.
2.5 minutes to go in the session now. On board with Cristiano Matta, currently second. Ahead of him, Bruno Junqueira. Behind him, Alex Tagliani. Oriol Servia has jumped up to 4th. Scott Dixon is 5th. Then Michael Andretti, Christian Fittipaldi, Toru Takagi, Adrian Fernandez, and Kenny Brack, last year's pole sitter. .143.192, just 0.04 of a second off of his best lap. Matta remains P2.
And he will have 2 more laps. He'll get back around within about, I think, 10 seconds before the checker comes out. So he will have 2 more full, actually maybe 3 more full laps.
Stay with us beyond the checkered flag. On a 4-mile loop like this one, it takes a while to find out which guys on hot laps have a shot at the pole.
Fernandez sliding up into 6th. Paul Tracy popping into 4th.
And no yellow arrows. All of those top 10 are on track, as well as most of the drivers behind them.
Bruno, talking about the point of no return. Bruno, that was it.
Calvin Fish.
Barely.
Let's get more from Calvin in the pits.
Well, just to update you on that last pit stop sequence, and I went to Newman Haas. I said, did you guys take on more fuel? Did you have any trouble with the stop? They said, no, we had an excellent stop. We're on a slightly lighter than full fuel load as well. Those guys up at Team Green just had a great one. They thought maybe Dario was on some recycled tires, but we've just...
On board now with Kenny Brack.
Look how close he gets to that left side wall.
Currently 15th, but as you saw, just getting started. 13 of his 15 allotted laps are still there in play.
Another thing the weather does, besides affecting the traction between the tires and the racetrack, it changes everything because of the air density. The hotter air is not as dense, produces less downforce over the control surfaces. The engines don't make quite as much power either.
This is the section we just showed you from yesterday. On the Shoreline Drive. Time remaining in the upper left. Less than 19 minutes to go.
That's the curve that threw Carpentier into the wall.
Boy, talk about threading the needle. Welcome back to Fundidora Park in Monterrey, Mexico, where the opening round of the Kart FedEx Championship Series continues. You ride with race leader Cristiano Matta. Ahead on the road are Michael Andretti and Adrian Fernandez. But look at the front wing on Matta's car after that contact earlier with Shinji Nakano. Flapping around. Now, in yesterday's opening round of Kart's Driver Development Series, the Toyota Atlantic Championship, last year's Rookie of the Year, Joey Hand, absolutely crushed his front wing. The whole left side folded up on the car, and he still drove it to a podium finish in third.
Now, Cristiano can afford to be a little bit patient, but these two cars in front of him, both Michael and Adrian, are starting to affect his strategy because he was running the quickest laps of the race. Now he's got a pretty decent lead over Dario. He has 13 seconds in hand, but this has slowed him down about 1.5 seconds per lap. So he can't do that for very long before he has to decide, do I force my way by these guys or do I wait for them to make a stop?
The top 7 cars, Matta, Franchitti, Fittipaldi, Tagliani, Jourdain, Dixon, and Papis, have a stop to make. Paul Tracy in 8th has made 4 stops, and as you heard earlier, fuel consumption problems are probably going to force him to make 1 more. That may put paid to his chances of winning this race. While you watch Matta in action, let's hear from proud Papa standing by with Derek Daly.
Indeed, very much a family affair. Cristiano's mother is here. Antonio, and I know you're concerned right now that Cristiano needs to pit fairly soon.
Because he lost 5 seconds. 5 seconds behind Michael and Adrian. So it has to be 1 more stop. So do it now. What difference make?
I know, having won 14 championships yourself, you know the importance of winning early in the season.
Sure. We have to win this race. We have the best car in the track. So we can win this. We need to win this, okay?
He looked fairly calm earlier, but he doesn't sound quite as calm as he looked earlier.
Thanks very much.
Maybe he needs to not tell you. Maybe he needs to tap Brian Lyles on the shoulder.
No question what Cristiano Matta's dad thinks.
I'm not sure I disagree.
Yeah, pit now if you're being held up. Get that last stop in when you can run clean and green to the end and get some space on the track. Maybe have another look at that wobbly front wing as well. The gap down to 12.1 seconds from first place Matta to second place Dario Franchitti. Let's learn more about what's happening with Paul Tracy. Here's Calvin Fish.
Well, the situation was they saw that fuel spike on the telemetry, and what happened was they do have a fuel pickup problem, as Tommy suggested, because they're getting good mileage. They should have been good to do those last 2 or 3 laps what they needed. So this is really heartbreak for that team. They had the problems early. The strategy was playing right to them, and suddenly the car will not.
Carrying our visor view camera today. It's interesting, the camera's in its usual place inside his visor, but it looks like Paul is sitting lower in the race car. It's a very different view than what we've had before. And if he can't see any more of the racetrack than we can, I've got a whole lot more admiration for Paul Tracy as a driver.
Maybe that's why he's so brave.
Scott Pruitt has more.
I just talked to Barry Green, team owner for Paul Tracy and all the cool cars and Motorola car. Asked about strategy. What are you going to do? You going to be at lap 12? He goes, well, right now we aren't sure what we're going to do. We're waiting to see how it's going to play out. Certainly, we've pushed Michael forward to lap 30. but we aren't quite sure. If we were getting held up right now, we would have Paul come in, but we're just kind of playing it by ear. Calvin?
Well, we talk about Paul Tracy in his low seating position. He did that on purpose. I think it's an old go-kart trick, try and get out of the slips, the airstream a little bit. But I looked at the car at Milwaukee. I couldn't believe how low he is, and we're now seeing the visor cam in action as well, so it's a different perspective. But he was pretty proud of himself. Eric Haverson said, who's his chief mechanic, how low he got to sit in the car and could still drive it.
He is definitely down there in the cockpit. As you can see, not a lot of room in the office.
Getting caught up with traffic coming out of the pits. Guys?
Thank you, Scott. There's our visor view cam, looking out the visor of Tony Kanaan. You see that white rectangle on his steering wheel? That's actually a track map.
Well, everybody always jokes about that's so they know where they're going. What that's actually for is when you come into the pits and you're talking with your engineer, if you're talking about turn 7, but your engineer thinks it's turn 8, so it's just to make sure that your comments are in sync. And so that's what that's for, because sometimes they change tracks over the year. Laguna Seca, for example, what used to be turn 4 is now turn 6. So it makes sure everybody's talking about the same thing.
And all of these slow sections, and yet Paul Tracy's lap this morning at 60.778 seconds, just about 3/10 of a second off the all-time lap record, averages out to 105.5 miles per hour. Now, yesterday, rookie leader Townsend Bell joined us here in the booth for qualifying. Today, we're happy to be joined by kart star and proven winner, Max Papis. Max, welcome.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Are you surprised at all to see these guys running out there as quickly as they have?
No, I'm not really surprised, Actually, this morning, lap time were very, very quick. And I'm not surprised to see guys out there early. It's a very slippery track, very easy to make a mistake. You need a few laps to put the hit in the tire. And I think it's a good move to be out there at the beginning.
I'm sure all your fans out there, Max, are wondering about your equipped teams this weekend. And this is Cristiano Damata in the Chevron card from Newman Haas Racing. Long time since they had a pole.
And this is something to point out. You saw, this is the outlap. You see how slow he's going. You saw him get crossed up even at this speed. This comes into play not only now, he's trying to get up to speed and stay out of everyone's way, but every time they leave the pit during the race, they're on cold tires. And with the new 25 lap, there's, I think, 6 or 7 pit stops in the race on Sunday. And so this is really, it's very risky. You try to go as quick as you can, but the chances of making a mistake on cold tires are through the roof.
56 races since a Newman Haas driver won a pole position. And Cristiano Damata has none in his career thus far, despite all the races he's won. While we watch him in action, here's Calvin Fish.
Well, just a quick update on Mario Dominguez. They actually have a broken fuel pump on that Ford engine. That's a big change. They can't fix it in the session. Mario's now getting fitted into the backup car, but once he runs this car, all his times are out of the window. He was 11th fastest yesterday, so if they put this car on the track, he'll start from scratch.
More action on the timesheets. The current order is Kenny Brack, Cristiano Damata, Patrick Carpentier, who has barely turned a lap yet. Tony Kanaan has not turned any. Now Patrick Carpentier is on the board, but nowhere close to the time he ran yesterday. He's on a hot lap now. Christian Fittipaldi is 5th, followed by Bruno Junqueira. Paul Tracy moving up from the lower half of the grid. Alex Tagliani is 8th. Townsend Bell, who went flag to clinch the Dayton Indy Lights Championship at this track a year ago, is 9th, and Jimmy Vasser is 10th. Let's track Cristiano Damata's progress with our sectional times. 4/10 slower than provisional pole, and adds another half second at the top of the corkscrew.
Yeah, saw the back step out big time as he got on the brakes for the corkscrew, but this is still only his first time lap. You heard Bruno say that you're looking at lap 2, lap 3. I would expect if he feels good about the car, you will be able to tell coming off turn 11 here if he really boots it. I would say that he's probably still doesn't have enough tire temperature. Scott, do you think he's on a flyer here? Second time lap, or do you think he needs one more?
The second and the third lap are going to be the quickest. The other thing very, very tough about this track is locking up the right front tire or left front tire. There are 2 areas that are extremely difficult. In fact, a number of times you come to this track, you'll actually run a little bit more rear brake than front brake. If you crest a hill going into the corkscrew, it's very, very easy to lock that right front. As you go down into turn 2, that tight hairpin at the bottom, also very, very easy to lock those fronts. And these guys have got to be careful.
You can see from the split, he's only 3/100ths off the bogey time. The pole time, a slower car trying to get up to speed up ahead of him. He's going to catch him at just the wrong time if he's not.
Oh, and he's quicker, is Cristiano da Matta. Then provisional pole. Just go right to the shift lever, short shift up a gear, head for turn 9. Slight bowl effect here to catch the car. Did he lose too much time with that wiggle? He lost a bunch. Nope. 22 thousandths of a second off.
So this ought to be the one.
Qualifying performance thus far this year. 5th in Monterrey, Mexico. 2nd at Long Beach by 3/1000ths of a second to Jimmy Vasser. 8th on the oval at Japan. And 7th on the Milwaukee Mile. This is the first of 2 rounds of qualifying for round 6 of the Kart FedEx Championship Series, the G.I. Joe's 200. I'm Bob Varsha with Tommy Kendall, Scott Pruitt, Calvin Fish, and Derek Daly. Cristiano da Matta is our current provisional pole sitter. You are riding with Dario Franchitti.
And this will be a hot lap. Well, as I said that, it sounded like, yeah, it doesn't look like he has a lot of tire temp just yet. Wow, that's the part where I was talking about where the road drops away. You really need to be to the inside. If you're on the outside, either lock the right front or you get loose entering like he did there. Upcoming is the hard, quick braking, hard left, up over part of the curb. See, he's using quite a bit more curb than Paul. Long exit.
The ratcheting of the traction control. While you're watching this, Townsend Bell has just jumped up to 2nd. Don't try this at home, kids. I am a trained professional. He has won 3 poles, has Townsend Bell at this racetrack. He has yet
probably never swallow that, but I'm comfortable with that myself.
I agree with that as we go on board with Kenny Brack. 6th quickest this morning. Listen for the engine note to rise and fall. And yesterday I went around this track with Patty Mayer, one of the kart pace car drivers in one of the official pace cars, a supercharged Lexus. We were up around $130, and I can tell you this place shortens up and narrows up despite its tremendous width and 2-mile length. When you get up over 100 miles an hour, can't imagine what it's like at more than 200.
Well, in the center of those corners, the G-loads are astounding, both straight down from the banking and into the side from the lateral forces.
Yesterday's provisional pole sitter.
Well, now, I'm going to shut my pie hole because my voice cannot compete with a 17,000 RPM Toyota. Listen to this thing scream and how long they're at the very, very high revs. Just sit back and enjoy. This is the pole lap.
Terribly difficult for a team first working for the first time, I'm trying to say in English, with the Lola. The car is very compact and very, very difficult to work on, we are told. On board with Kenny Brack, coming up to the corkscrew, as you can see. 19th fastest through trap 2. Brack currently 3rd on the boards. Only 5 laps into his allotted 15. Remember, this is for 1 championship bonus point and a spot on the front row for Sunday's race.
We're seeing a much different session than we saw in either Monterrey or Long Beach, and that's because this track, the grip is a lot more consistent versus the temporary courses that are getting so much quicker. Everybody waited to the very, very end because you gambled on traffic, but here you heard Cristiano saying we're going to go out a little bit early. He wasn't the only guy with that idea, so it's more of a traditional session. You go 1 run, see what you've got on new tires, come in, maybe do a change, and then there'll be a flurry at the end when everybody throw that second set of new tires on and try to get a clear lap and see what they can do.
Kenny Brack on a hot lap. The previous lap was a warm-up. Going up to turn 6. 0.2 slower than where Cristiano de Matta was on his provisional pole-sitting lap.
And this has given us a little bit of an idea, and some of the other teams pay attention to this also, on where Cristiano's advantage is. Unless you're around him on the track when he's doing that stuff, you saw he lost another 10 to the bogey time, but Cristiano was making up 0.2 between turn 9 and start-finish. So very, very, very strong in the final portions of that course. And that traffic, I think, probably held him up a little bit. I said it's not going to be a factor. He closed so quickly, and you see Kenny bringing back a little bit of the time, but Cristiano was so fast to that final corner onto the straightaway and putting the power down. I think if he makes another run, you might see that show up there as well without the traffic.
That lap, 1 minute 10.488 seconds, just off his best thus far, but he has to get it.
Well, if he's got the speed, I think Tracy will work with him.
Here's Dario's nose to the right of your screen. If you look closely, you may be able to see his eyelashes. We've been having a lot of fun with this visor view cam all weekend here at Motegi.
There's Tony Kanaan going down the inside. Exiting turn 2, going down the back straight. Now it's interesting, they go down 2 gears, going down into 3. Shift up once, going down into 1, and then another time, upshift going down into turn 4, about halfway.
Just as I said, everybody was queuing up behind Paul Tracy. All of a sudden, I don't know if he might have been saving fuel and then approaching the pit stop. He decided to pour the fuel back to it. Coupled with Junqueira's little bit of a bobble, is giving him some nice breathing room.
Heard that ratcheting sound of the electronic traction control.
There it is again, that understeer. Having to wait on the throttle while the other guys are able to get it up and pick it up and go.
Coming around to complete lap 13, so the top 11 cars will be in the pits at the next lap.
Four wins last year, Kenny Brack had. Hasn't had a win this year. Oh, the twin sideways. Yikes. Can he chase down and pass the dominant Brazilian? Down through the gearbox, hard on the brakes. Kenny's exceptionally good on all racetracks also. Remember, he's a road racing specialist from Sweden, loves these street circuits. Identical machinery here. Lolas with Toyota engines. The problem with a street circuit, you might be able to catch somebody, and you might even be half a second a lap faster, but it is very tough to squeeze down inside somebody and make the pass.
Things are getting really intense. We're hearing that the Vasser, who was out of this race on lap 1, not a good weekend at all for the 96 Series champion.
And de Matta's dad has to be in a complete lather by now because the lead gap is down to 7.7 seconds. Michael has peeled off in the pits, but now he is stuck behind Adrian, and he lost about 9/10 of a second that lap. So, I mean, he's got some time in hand. Both drivers need to make some stops, but he's giving away all that hard-earned track position.
There's when the top 5 must pit. Down to Derek Daly.
Quick update. Antonio D'Amata is absolutely jumping up and down. He was so calm and collected as he watched it until this happened. While he was behind Michael, he was on the radio screaming to try and have CART blue flag Michael to let him by. He lost in excess of 7 seconds just trying to make his way by. That's a huge amount when you see your lead gobbled up.
And Antonio D'Amata knows whereof he speaks, a many-time racing champion in his native Brazil before sending his son on to the United States, where he has flourished. The gap is down to 7.4 seconds from first place D'Amata to second place Franchitti to Calvin Fish.
Well, an update on Dario. We thought we'd see him in around lap 69 or 70, but I just spoke to the team. They said with D'Amata being held up, we're going to probably leave him out there a little bit longer. But what you get into, guys, is the fact that the tires change takes about 7 seconds, and that's about 18 gallons of fuel. So if they leave it much longer than that, they're going to be waiting on tires rather than how much fuel they put in the car. So it's really a strategy game once again, but they believe as long as he's making ground on D'Amata, they're going to stay out with the leader.
And that assumes that your pit stop goes well. Keep in mind, this is the first race of the year, and as hard as your team may have been working, their pit stop techniques may not be in mid-season form yet.
And the first sign that Cristiano is equally frustrated, he's waved his hand twice now. He's not going to get a whole lot of sympathy from the fans here, but if he can get the attention of the chief steward, Adrian has a right, to stay on the lead lap. He would argue that up and down, and he does. So they have a decision to make on the team. Do you pull him in and get him away from those guys?
Dario Franchitti comes off the corner, flashes across the start-finish line in the Champ Car Series. On board with Tracy. Control.
Whoop. The opposite locks and the rear wheels locked. Paul has that down. Why? When he has the right package, he is just very, very aggressive. A real charger, tremendous attitude.
And he's just set fast lap of the race thus far.
I'm happy to see that track position is not a factor at all. If you're faster, you can get by people. And what that means is you don't have any guys saving fuel. If you get a one-groove racetrack, even with the new rules, you would have guys save
one. So this will be the car we're going to run.
Now, three-car team here now for Chip Ganassi Racing, so maybe that's causing problems, guys.
Thanks, Calvin. That's a bit of a reunion. It was Bill Papis who was engineering Calvin's ARS car when he won here in Toronto back in 1988, if I'm not mistaken. Let's check splits now with Dario Franchitti, currently third. 10th off the pole sitter's first segment at turn 3. Whoa! Losing ground. And as you saw, losing a little traction. Final corner coming up. Slog back a little, but not nearly enough. 58.745, a good 3/10 off of his best time in the session thus far. Welcome back to final round qualifying for the Kart Grand Prix of Cleveland. Bob Varsha, Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, Calvin Fish, and Scott Pruitt with you. You ride with Alex Tagliani.
cool and very comfortable that he has that, just that touch of push. Because Scott, as you know, it just gives you the comfort factor as opposed to looseness on an oval track.
That's exactly right, Derek. When you get out there and you have that little bit of a comfort, that push, the hands are a little bit heavy, you can control the car very well. It's not quite as fast, but as they get down to the end, they can dial that out. Right now, they're just working to get to that last stop for that race to the checkered.
The gap from race leader Kenny Brack to second place Michael Andretti in 16th position. Visor cam with Paul Tracy. Traction control chatter. That was his third lap, taking 2 seconds off the previous orbit at 63.047 seconds. He's going to want a lot more out of this lap.
Yeah. We were thinking this is his fourth lap, and I think it's probably going to be lap 5. He's still not taking 10/10, is he, Max?
Yeah, we're going to see here. It's pretty quick now. He went flat into the kink. And I think it's this one and the next one are going to be the quick one.
Turn 6.
Didn't do a very good braking in that part. Didn't kick the throttle enough. But he's still very, very quick. You know, Paul is one of the most, incredible guy out there. You know, always goes sideways. You know, he push really hard. For me, that I'm outside here watching is great fun to watch.
Chased the back end going into turn 10. Jumped out sideways on him. Wow.
He's really on it now.
Checking the time this time by. That was a 61.074. Still not what he wants. He's got to get about another 8/10 out of it. If he's going to overcome Cristiano de Matta.
Looks like he backed off a little bit. Yeah.
Oh. Plenty of time, plenty of laps. This is only his 5th of 15. Meanwhile, Cristiano de Matta has shot all of his 15 laps. He's done for the day at 60.339. He can only wait and watch.
And it looks like to me with new tires, I mean, you can just when the tires come in, it's a really odd. You feel the grip come through the steering wheel, and the back is just a little bit more planted than normal, and it just gives you that confidence where you need the most commitment going into the corner. Is that correct?
Yeah, you know, it's a very, very fine compromise between being aggressive and being smooth. You know, you can easily overdrive the car, and you know, when you put new tires, you always want to feel you want to go a little bit more, a little bit harder. But in the slow corner, you know, it's important to back off a little bit. You know, getting
beautiful day in Denver. Not such a beautiful day at Darlington, South Carolina. However, we understand activities today were completely rained out for this weekend's Southern 500. So Greg Biffle will start for pole in the NASCAR Busch Series race. Sterling Marlin from pole in the Winston Cup race as the points leaders in their respective series. Be sure to check out Trackside from Darlington tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern on your home for NASCAR Speed Channel. Riding along with Kenny Brack. Coming from Sweden, I would imagine he's done his share of fast driving on slippery roads. He's got a slippery road here in Denver. Christian Fittipaldi is currently quickest at 62.444 seconds over Scott Dixon. Brack is currently 9th. Straight blast to the right-hander at turn 6.
And one thing that's accounting for that spot being so slick is there's a slight brow that you crest and so when you turn in, you're kind of going the back side of that slight slope, and so any little change in camber is just a little less grip.
And from Brazil, Cristiano de Matta leads the Tecate Telmex Grand Prix. hoping to remain undefeated here in the opening round of the Kart FedEx Championship Series. Matta, last year's winner, has the field right where he wants them in his rearview mirror as we work lap 35 of 85. Matta began the season last year with a victory, ended it with 2 victories, wound up 5th in points, the best of his career in the Champ Cars to date. Here's a look at Brazilian drivers last year. Dario Neves with Team Penske has moved on to the Indy Racing League. Cristiano de Matta, both with 3 victories, 4th and 5th in the championship. Gil de Ferran, of course, was last year's champion. He and Neves are teammates in the IRL this year. There's been a predominantly Brazilian driver series in recent years, but their numbers are down just that little bit this year.
He's catching up to the back of Junqueira, and what?
Now he's got his set up with a countdown there where Dario's numbers are building. If they're going to run a fuel number there, maybe they start with the number of gallons and they're doing a countdown there. It's going to be interesting to see what the Ganassi cars can do, because right now you got Brack in 7th, Bruno in 10th, and Dixon in 12th. So if they got their heads together there in the pits, they might be able to sort something out and get themselves further up the field.
Now Kanaan out of the throttle. Turn 9 coming up.
They might be on the radio with him, telling him that there's a gap just ahead and to slow up. They get that. Yeah, now he's on the pipe. So they get that on the telemetry, all the car numbers around the track, and they'll tell him he's got a nice big gap. The only problem is if somebody comes out in the pits just ahead of him as he's going through 1.
Or somebody comes flying up from behind, which led to the problems between Carpentier and Bruno Junqueira yesterday. See the current running order across the top of your screen.
Clear track, nobody out of the pits.
Currently the caboose is Michel Jourdain Jr. in the Higanti car from Team Rahal. Suffering through another tough weekend. He hasn't been able to better his time from yesterday. One of 3 drivers who have yet to do that. The other 2 are Alex Tagliani and Jimmy Vasser. So both Team Rahal cars leaving their drivers scratching their heads at the moment. All of the top 10 are on track.
You see that green minus .371. That's a full 3.5 tenths quicker than de Matta's pole time through that segment. Still ahead, widening the gap.
This could be a big chunk.
Gas as quickly as you dare. Brack goes to the top of the charts, and Patrick Carpentier to 2nd. Kanaan's lap at 66.994. He lost time in that last segment.
I think we blew up our display again because the numbers, it said he was 1.1 seconds ahead. The one hand on the steering wheel. Cristiano made an interesting comment after he tested the Formula One Toyota. He said the Champ cars were more physical to drive, and that was a big thing about it. You never had to take your hand off the wheel to shift, and they had power steering. So in that situation, having power steering, if you only had one hand and needed to make a correction, you could do it easily. And he said that's something that obviously yesterday he would have loved to have the power steering. I believe that Cristiano, kind of being the purist that he is, probably likes the fact that he's in excellent shape and probably considers that an advantage if they're a little bit more physical in the longer races.
Today's pictures are coming to us from our host broadcaster this weekend in Toronto, Global TV. Start-finish straightaway. Prince's Boulevard here at Exhibition Place. There's Prince's Gate in the background in turn 1.
That big opposite lock, it's hard to see from this view, but there's a lot of crown to the road. So when you're at the apex, you actually have effectively a bank track, and then halfway out on the exit, it goes to negative camber. And that's why you see the guys, they really try to have a lot of grip, and then it goes away. So if you look at it from above, they take a slightly different line. They do a little bit more of the work of the car at the apex. This turn 5 is similar. A bull and then the negative camber on the exit. very tough to drive, but also it affects the setup, because the shock absorbers, which control how the wheel comes up and comes back down, that's a big part of keeping those wheels in contact as the camber is changing.
Off Manitoba Drive onto Nova Scotia Avenue. Past the pit entrance, driver's right. Big corner right here. Dario Franchitti has already posted a lap at 58. Oh, he goes down to 58.488. On board with Paul Tracy. Tracy 17th currently with only 3 laps in the books. 65.611 seconds is best. That is 4.4 seconds slower than Kanaan.
It's a little bit of an unusual strategy for Paul, because he admittedly says he's not a great qualifier. He has a tough time just going out and snapping on, but they must either have had a problem or he feels pretty confident that late in the session was the time to go, because they haven't left themselves a lot of margin.
Expect a little breakup right here. As soon as Paul Tracy gets back in the clear, we'll listen to his engine note. You'll see just how hard these drivers have to work.
It's not a Formula One car. That alone is about 4 seconds a lap as we go on board Tony Kanaan.
Tony Kanaan driving for Morris Nunn. Sad to point out that Jim Crawford, also a former Mo Nunn driver, passed away on August 6th at the age of 54. Former Formula One driver, British Formula Atlantic and Can-Am driver. 8 Indianapolis 500 starts, finished 6th in 1988. Ralph Shaheen has more on Tony Kanaan.
Well, Tony has made his pit stop off. They did take tires and fuel in the car. They didn't make any major changes. But Tony did say that 5 laps before the pit stop, his tires were used up. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as we get closer to the next round of pit stops.
These are very, very grit with Dario Franchitti, currently shown 5th, but he has done only 6 of his 15 laps as we come up on 10.5 minutes to go in the session. So Scott will have to get it done. Meanwhile, Scott Dixon has run his 15 laps. He is currently P2. Shinji Nakano is also done. He shot the chicane at the Festival Curves on his last couple of laps, and he is currently 16th. Now, Jimmy Vasser is going to be penalized for a pit lane speed violation in excess of the mandatory 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. Boy, he really shattered it. He went through at 58 miles an hour, we're told.
Son, you were doing 58 and a 55.
That'll cost you. Let's get down to the pit lane.
I'm in Team Cool Green pit, right between Paul Tracy and Dario Franchitti. Paul radioed in and said this car is very good. The tires are only good for a couple really fast laps. Let's take all the fuel out of the car except for what it's going to take me to get just those 2 laps I need. He ran a very, very fast lap, puts him in 3rd position. But what you didn't see, he actually got off the track, exiting the last turn onto the front straight, costing about 2 or 3 tenths. He's going to try and gather it up, put another couple quick laps together. As far as his team,
So we've still got another 14 laps to go.
Stay tuned for more action.
All right, thank you, Scott. You ride along with Paul Tracy from Team Green. We have 5 cars on track right now. Papis, Tracy, Takagi, Michael Andretti, and Dario Franchitti. So all of the Team Green cars are out there. Tire smoke there from the car ahead of Tracy.
It's Dario in the cool mild car, and Paul in the cool FK Filter King car. Think everyone's ever said F King Tracy before?
Different kind of green. Great paint jobs on these cars. Now, these are cars from the back half of the grid. Papis up 12th, Tracy 13th, Takagi 14th, Michael Andretti 17th, Dario Franchitti currently 19th. Mario Dominguez, who brought out that red flag, is 11th, and because he brought out that flag, he will lose his best lap. So Dominguez is effectively 1 lap in the hole. The fastest he goes, he will lose that lap today. So he's got to put a string of fast laps together in order to improve. Turn 11. to get through the gearbox with 850 horsepower under your right foot.
And enjoy the sounds of speed here in Vancouver. On board with Carpentier, you notice how much shifting the drivers have to do and how much steering they have to do with their left hand only.
That's what caught Cristiano out at Toronto in qualifying. Had one hand on the shifter and he hit some bumps. The car got away from him and couldn't keep it together with just one hand.
Well, the suspension pieces are going to be a continuing story all day. Let's get an update on Scott Dixon with Scott Pruitt.
I just got done talking to his team.
All right, mate. Well, good luck with the game tomorrow.
Thank you.
Perhaps a little reminiscent of the something less than a mile oval at Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Always turning, something new at every corner. On board with Dario Franchitti. He goes on the clock.
1.5 mile oval, pushing average speeds of 214. That's staggering.
With only 8 degrees of banking in the corners.
The G-loading is pretty consistent. You see Dario a little bit behind the pole sitter's pace on this first lap.
On board with the Matta, just ahead of Carpentier on the road. 1 minute to go. Kanaan just crossed the line, no improvement. Same for Kenny Brack.
Kamada's got one more chance here. Boy, that thing looks really nice for 21. That's a really fast corner. His hands didn't move at all. Things working good.
66.541 for D'Amato that last time.
Giuliani was driving the car that struck Zanardi's at about 200 miles an hour in Germany last September.
And Alex, I know, had trouble getting over that. He felt guilty that he thought maybe he should have been able to do something. And Alex Zanardi went to him first thing to assure him, because we were all there, said, don't feel guilty. It was nothing to do with you. It was a racing accident. And they hugged each other. There were some tears, but a very emotional time for the Alex and for Tag.
He scored his best career finish in the Kart FedEx Championship Series here last year. A runner-up finish. Welcome back to Twin Ring Motegi in Japan in the Bridgestone Potenza 500. I'm Bob Varsha with Scott Pruitt, Tommy Kendall, Calvin Fish, and Derek Daly, and you are riding with Dario Franchitti.
Dario's had a good, solid race. Unfortunately, that miscommunication, getting a lap down early, but he's run a strong race all day long.
That's the only difference between he and the leaders, virtually, is that when they tried to extend their window, what we've been telling everyone what Tagliani should be doing, they did on the lap it went green and didn't get quite back caught up before they went green, ended up going a lap down and hasn't been able to get back to that. His only chance, again, is between 190 and 197. If they can get a yellow there, he'll make that time up. But other than that, he's probably trapped a lap down.
And it's worth the gamble. I mean, it's absolutely worth the gamble because it takes so long to get in and out of the pits.
Chips lead shots. His belt occasionally flaps up into the picture. I'm surprised he wouldn't fasten that down.
Yeah, it's amazing you do. You stick it down inside, and then after about I don't know, 100 laps or so, it just kind of works its way loose, and it'll start flapping around a little bit.
There's Mr. Osaka, and I mean, this, I don't know if this is true, if this is urban legend, but after the first year at Motegi when Ford won, rumor has it that some senior engineer slapped a junior engineer in a bar to say this is dishonorable. So it gives you a sense of how important this is between Toyota and Honda.
I was there. I saw it. He was in the bar after the race at Motegi at that hotel right behind the track, and it did happen.
Well, there you go.
It's brutal.
This is Shinji Nakano. A moment ago, you saw Tora Takagi.
Down 2 gears. Into turn 3. Working through 3. I know you can't see that, but...
Told by Townsend earlier this weekend, Patrick asked if he should not come to the race this weekend. See if this is a flyer from Franchitti.
You can tell by the way he's leaving his hand on the shifter. It tells me that he's probably not hustling it.
Scott Pruitt has more on Dario.
Well, actually, he was talking about Townsend Bell and his team owner. Not that I've spent any time with Mr. Patrick, but he is he's a little bit rough around the edges at times. In fact, he's not one of those guys to hold back on telling you exactly what he thinks. And it was quite funny talking to Townsend after the race last weekend. He said, you know, Pat's gone fishing and you should stay gone fishing for the rest of the year.
I had breakfast once with Pat Patrick in Australia at the Surfers Paradise race. Somebody came by and said, "What's up?" Ooh, problems there for Dario after going to P2 on the provisional charts.
That's the stripe with a lap at 76.260, 9/10 slower than the previous one. Michael Andretti.
Christian trying to hold Michael off on cold tires. If he get his tires up to temperature here, another couple corners, he could probably start to pull away from Michael. His fast lap being 1.4 seconds better than Michael's best, so if he can just get on the straightaway here, he should be able to settle back into his rhythm.
Out of the stadium section into the long left-hander that leads to the start-finish straightaway. Sun beginning to grow low over the mountains that surround Monterrey, Mexico. The driver's eyes in turn 1. It's a tighter turn 1 than it looks like on the track map. It's almost 90 degrees.
Snow I talked about, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. We haven't had a yellow all day, but now that everybody has stopped except Cristiano, if we were to yellow flag and he did
gap over Paul Tracy. Onto the start-finish straightaway. Across the line comes Franchitti. Paul Tracy, 1.6 seconds behind.
3 laps remaining. 3 laps.
That's right, 3 to go. Watch the steering input.
You heard the engine rev, even with the traction control. With the cold tires, the tires break loose so quickly, the traction control sometimes can't even keep up.
Qualifying, look at Paul Tracy at slow speed trying to get back to the pits at the end of this short practice.
I think I just saw Derek Daly leaning over the wall there.
Waving at his old buddy as he goes by. This is the start-finish straightaway. Left-hander coming up, turn 1, under the bridge.
And the early sessions on a street course are not too dissimilar to running in the rain. It really tricks your mind because you think, okay, this is a dry racetrack, but it drives like a wet one because it's just so slippery.
Listen to the traction control, ratcheting
even in
away.
a straight line. Watch the track open up here into turn 5.
It's like turn 1 at Cleveland.
that section, they even look at the throttle and the thing jumps sideways.
This is 8 and 9.
Ooh. Another place where there's an elevation change where they really have to chase the back end out.
Great corner here. Down into the carousel. Big curve on the right and on the left. Flag stand coming up. Max Papis has posted the first 2 laps of this qualifying session. His best, 73.897, 130.
And currently 9th. Make that 4 laps in the books. He just completed his 4th, jumps up to 9th on the provisional grid. 14 drivers have now logged times to ride aboard the Chevron Lola with Cristiano de Matta. Is that 5 downshifts in the Andretti corner?
They run the 7-speed gearbox now, so that could very well be that. I wasn't counting it.
We'll be looking for his split at the first intermediate, right-hand side of our AT&T track map. There it is.
3/10 off.
3/10 slow.
Pulled back about 500, so going up the hill through 6 and up the hill.
Short shift into 9. Goes Cristiano de Matta bumping, and we need to point this out. Townsend Bell, who knows this track very, very well. Bell very much on the hot seat after crashing out of his first 4 starts for Patrick Racing. But Cristiano de Matta not only bumped Bell, who is now 3rd, he also bumped Tony Kanaan, who at the same instant practically had bumped Bell, then de Matta bumped Kanaan. And the times are falling rapidly. As you see, de Matta now on a faster lap, 46 thousandths of a second quicker than his previous best.
And between here and start-finish lap,
team has a nice, contented smile on his face. Christian Fittipaldi, now here's where it gets a bit interesting. He likes the car, but it's a bit too slow down the straight. That's in relation to the Ford engines. The Ford engines appear to have just a touch more speed in a straight line. So Kanaan has been told that later in the race they're going to wind the downforce off his car. He came back and said, despite the fact that he has downforce or understeer now, he is a little bit wary of taking downforce off because he said, I do not want to have a big oversteer moment.
Yeah, no kidding. Pucker
Can't blame him for that.
That's enough to scare you right there.
Going back to Mario Dominguez, only a Champ Car driver would say it's a thrill to be running 230 miles an hour.
Why, you wouldn't find that thrilling, Bob?
Oh, thrilling is one.
On that lap, that meant his dash was telling they were slightly ahead of their best segment to date.
Now, I don't think he's got it set up like I would. On that lower box, I might have it so it would give me a plus or minus for that segment to tell me. But the lap time is the box just above that. So maybe that's, I'm not quite sure what that number is.
Might be fuel used, I think.
Could be, yeah.
Could be fuel used because that's one of the variables they'll be monitoring on trying to get everything to peak at the right time.
You can program just about anything you want to come on that display.
Stock quotes?
What's the point right now? Working his 4th lap. He is obviously out of it just that little bit. See if he heads for the pits or tries another hot lap.
There was a rumor, I don't think it was a rumor, that Michael Schumacher had the World Cup scores plumbed into his steering wheel.
This is on Ontario Drive, sharp left.
That's where Tagliani went right over the curbs. Long, long right-hander here. Keeps going. Now the next kink is flat. And you hold your breath right here, look. Zoom! Wall to wall. And the brake zomer Kanaan went off. Look at the vibration through the steering wheel on Tracy's Lola.
That's off Manitoba Drive onto Nova Scotia Avenue. Obviously all the streets here named for Canadian provinces.
It's a little adjustment on his visor. Paul's been hounded, as you can imagine, all weekend long here. Autograph seekers, press men. He's got a run and hide, has his motorhome here in the paddock, stays here.
No sign up the road of Cristiano de Matta. Last time by the timing stripe, 2.7 seconds.
Up one boost.
Patrick Carpentier has improved his personal best to 66.771, better than his provisional pole yesterday, but 0.04 of a second slower than Cristiano de Matta's current pole position. Calvin Fish.
Well, Newman Haas has 2 of the 5 cars that are currently down under the 1:07 barrier. Slight adjustments on both cars. Both cars are now on track. Cristiano de Matta, slight shock adjustment, looking for more grip, and a front wing change for Christian Fittipaldi, increasing the front grip there for the high-speed turns.
Thanks very much. Easing out of it is Cristiano de Matta.
And Moyer, he is giving it enough revs and going onto the rev limiter. As soon as he drops the clutch, something to do with the traction control is not in sync with the rev limiter and causing the engine to die momentarily right at the wrong time and wreaking havoc here with Frank Kitty.
Thank you, Derek and Calvin. Good to see Joe Ramirez here, one of the truly good people in motor racing. Notice Dario Franchitti, the bolster, driver's left, is right at visor level. He is way down in the seat of that car.
You saw on one of the opening shots on the show, he actually runs, he builds the right side. He actually wedges his helmet between the 2 pads, and he has his head wedged to the left. He can't straighten his head up if he wants to. That helps with the buffeting, and it's how he's comfortable. So his head is actually tipped, which is why that's at eye level.
We're going to take a little break, sit back, and join you for some of the sounds of speed. Turn it up.
The series runs a Bridgestone Potenza tire. Now, for Kanaan, for some reason, all weekend long has taken him about 4 or 5 laps when he gets a fresh set of tires to get them up the pace. New tires, he went out, he was running 61s. Now, after about 4 or 5 laps, he's dipping back into the 59s. So look for Kanaan to start moving back towards the front.
Tony Kanaan on Friday put a lap in to put him on the front row of the grid temporarily. His first comment to his engineer Ian Watt when he got out was, "This is the car from hell. If we can make this car more drivable, I'll go much faster." Which reminded me of a comment Tim Coffeen made to me one time, that when de Matta has the car on the edge and difficult to drive, it's at its very fastest. And also reminded me of Toronto just last week. The morning warm-up, Christian Fittipaldi was the fastest man in race trip.
All his speed on the road courses, still has no poles in the Kart FedEx Championship Series. You ride now with Dario Franchitti, currently shown buried back in 17th.
You can tell this is he's not really up to speed yet. Trying to get a little bit of heat in the tires. This looks like this is his second run on his first set of tires. So they made a little bit of a change, try to get a feel for it, and then get back out there on the quick ones. That's what's notable about what Kenny Brack just did. His time where he bumped Cristiano came on a second run on the first set of tires. So they made a change in the car. Not only was it better, it was more than enough to offset any sort of fall off from that initial spike that the tires might have had. So as he came in, they were laying out his second set. So expect he and Cristiano to have a little bit of a duel here.
Hot lap coming up. Let's ride along with Dario Franchitti.
Still not fully up to speed. You can hear that, you know, his shifts are not quite as quick, not really taking it in here. It's just trying to build some temperature slowly in the tires, get a feel for whatever change they made, and you can tell he's a little bit too relaxed to be on a fast one.
One of only 3 cars on track right now, so he'll have clean racetrack. Tony Kanaan and rookie Mario Dominguez are on track with Dario Franchitti. This race is normally held in the fall. Last year it was October 14th after a full summer of racing schools, 4 other racing weekends, corporate outings, and so forth. So the track was usually well scrubbed. It's one of the first races of the year here at Laguna Seca. The track is quite slippery. To Calvin Fish in the pit lane.
Well, Tanzan Bell has just gone back out. Currently,
it goes from the steering wheel right down in here, all the way to the front of the cockpit, down to the pedals. And it's a spring-loaded system.
Okay, we got you, man. Leave it alone.
And obviously
it's not going to work there. Brake temps are evening up a little. You're going to have to spin first. Do what you can with it.
Jan? They're watching the telemetry. That's pretty cool when you can actually go to the telemetry and check the brake temperature on the front and the rear. That's how they knew they wanted to go and turn it towards the front. But Derek, as you know, once you turn the brakes all the way to the front, the cable has a lot of spring to it. So therefore, it appears as though Paul Tracy has already gone as far as he can to the front. Any more that he turns it, the cable just spins it back. That's all he's going to get.
Let me correct myself about his position. Several of the cars ahead of him on the racetrack are a lap down. Paul Tracy is currently 10th, the last car on the... no, he's not the last car. Alex Tagliani is the last car on the lead lap behind him.
And the last message John Anderson gave to Paul Tracy, do what you can with it.
Paul is under Trey scraping.
And it is going to be very close. Junqueira and Matta should be in the pits this lap, and they have been ripping off some really quick laps.
Matta went a 44.1. That's the fastest of the race thus far.
And they're going to be very close to coming out in front of Paul Tracy. They'll have cold tires, but they might be in front of him track position-wise. If these guys come out in front on cold tires, watch them be very defensive, trying to keep Paul Tracy behind him, and watch Paul to be very aggressive to capitalize while his tires are hot.
There goes Junqueira and Matta. Man, he is smoking. Time to whoa it down to 50 miles an hour. Calvin Fish, you're up.
Well, Bruno Junqueira brings the car down. He has made 0 changes to this car today. Very happy with the balance of the race car. Bill Papis said, once again, no changes. Now, with Matta this close.
Now let's listen. In any one gear, braver than Dick Tracy.
May think about lifting a little. On board with Tony Kanaan.
Heading into turn 3. Turn 4 onto the back straight. Flat in 5th gear kink. And right there is where the suspensions are failing. So if that doesn't put it in perspective for you, these guys are brave.
I wonder what's been going on over the radio waves between the teams and the drivers regarding those suspension parts.
You know, about the only thing you can do is ask him to stay off the curbs. The reason the curbing, and you'll get it, watch when he comes in here, you'll hear it, see if he's on the left side and the right side. Bang. Looks like he was avoiding the second set of curbs, so Mo Nunn might have asked him to give them a wide berth. And the reason the curbs are so brutal is when you hit the brakes, those A-arms are trying to fold back. There's tremendous loads. When you hit the curb, it's loaded and then unloaded, and it's putting torque through, and then it is a little bit different with the timing line in turn 14A. You can finish a lap and then duck into the pits right away for a change without having to do a whole cool-off lap. It also means that the session's not over when the checker comes out. The timing line is right there. So you'll see guys even altering their line, and they'll bomb the corner, and just to get to the timing line, even if it really messes up their exit, the exit's not important. As long as they get to the line, you'll see some guys do some crazy things. They have a rule in the rule book. If your transponder doesn't get across the line, obviously you don't get scored. But if you want to go all 4 wheels off, as long as your transponder hooks that electronic strip going off the road and it counts, it's clean.
We'll try to follow this whole lap with the series leader, Cristiano Matta. Notice the top 10 continues to shuffle. Tora Takagi at the top now. Here comes turn 5. Watch how late he breaks. Whoa! Here comes Hurry Downs, rushing down to turn 8. The carousel. Here comes the kink. Next up, Canada corner. Billy Mitchell Bridge.
Watch the scoring update. Didn't crack the top 10.
D'Amato 146.394, 136.970 miles per hour. So Alex Tagliani back at the top of the charts. Once again, Michael is the only driver in the field who has led in each of the previous 5 500-mile races here. On board with Alex Tagliani, and now with Cristiano D'Amato.
And both players' cars are moving rapidly to the front.
Players' car have been very, very fast in all the practice sessions here. And as Calvin mentioned, except for qualifying, but they seem to be very good in traffic situations.
I get a chuckle out of listening to all the drivers talk about how they're really just going to drive around until 50 to go. I think they should amend that to say we're going to go like steak for the first 50 and then settle in and then go like steak for the last 50, because they say what they want, but the juices get flowing, and those guys all want to go to the front. As they say, if you're not the lead dog, the view never changes.
On board with Max Papis, who ran very hard here last year, might have won the race, but Scott Dixon crashed with about 4.
Alex Tagliani had a notion. On board with Tagliani.
And for these guys that are out of sequence, it's important that they run as quick as they can, because Cristiano and those guys can make up that one-stop deficit if they get enough of a gap, and then you get a yellow or doing it under green. So the guys that are back here amongst them, they're battling amongst themselves. And if Tags is quicker than the car in front of him, he needs to get by, or the edge they gained on that pit stop starts to slip away.
Tagliani sat on pole for this race a year ago, dominated more than 60 laps of the race before he stopped with a mechanical failure. Still looking for his first win with the Kart FedEx Championship Series. Meanwhile, Michel Jourdain Jr.'s day has gone from bad to worse. He's already made a couple of pit stops, a total of 4 actually. And he's about to come in for a drive-through penalty for running over a hose on his very first one. More from Scott Pruitt in the pit lane on this lap. Well, D'Amato and Brack are good to go. Junqueira is the car between, in addition to Nakano.
This plays into Christian's hands big time. He's being held up. Brack's being held up behind Nakano.
Underneath Nakano he goes. Is that Papis? Ooh.
I think Christian's going to have enough in hand to get out at least in front of him. Going to have to drive a really, really tough lap on cold tires.
Christian should be approaching the pit entrance. Brack, okay, he'll go around Papis. Had to get that done.
Christian can go one more if he wants. Oh, yep.
No sign of D'Amato up ahead.
Front row start. Now we're going to get a little greedy and try and get the most out of this track that we can possibly get. Guys?
On board with Jimmy Vasser. We'll follow him through some of the intermediate times.
This is his 6th lap. Both he and his teammate Jourdain were on the scuff tires. Let's see how that works. Jourdain is in P5. He did that on his 8th lap. So this should be right in the window. Hardly looks like they're on a fast lap. They are just crawling through that section. He's 8/10 off, so that's certainly not going to do him much good.
Turn 9, onto the start-finish straightaway, onto the Shell Bridge, or Coors Light Bridge, pardon me. And immediately on the brakes for turn 1. 62.828 seconds. Jimmy Vasser's best performance, much better than yesterday, but not enough to hoist him up from 11th spot on the grid. Tracy remains 11th, Paul Tracy in 12th. Derek Daly has more on Tracy.
Right now, Paul Tracy would spend any amount of money at the local shelf.
In 5th, on board with him.
One of the great personalities. Also, 1 gear change, 2 gear changes. Matta only changes 1 time. There's two gears down. But I mentioned earlier, they have never been away to test this car. They arrive at a racetrack and do the best they can, and they do a great job. Fastest yesterday morning after the first practice session. And you know what? Don't you think Tony Kanaan deserves a bit of good luck?
Oh, no question.
How many races has he led, including the Indy 500? And he hasn't.
Let's go on board with Paul Tracy, and as we do, let's update that battle for 10th place. Tracy came into the day with it, but right now, Kenny Brack would take over 2nd if the race were to end right now. Michel Jourdain Jr. would finish 1 point behind in 11th. And remember the difference from 10th to 11th when it comes to the banquet, handing out the checks. 100 large for 10th place, 0 for 11th. Paul Tracy has dropped back to 12th in the, shall we call them, provisional points.
And Paul has put in an amazing drive. Unfortunately, it was started with a really poor move in turn 1, which put him a lap down, but he has just been running an amazing string of quick laps. Chasing, so he just needs to keep his foot in it, hope for some guys dropping out. There's that slight chance he can get back on the lead lap if a yellow falls exactly at the right time. But other than that, this is hard, isn't it, Roberto? When you're down and you really don't have anything to go for to keep your heart in it, but he's putting in a real charge.
Well, what happens is when you do some...
Take him around, Tommy.
Well, we'll just lay out again, but watch the dual nature of this track. The first part, medium grip, very bumpy. And the second part, smooth, but no grip. This is not his pole lap. We were trying to do that. We have it somewhere, so.
Little too pokey there at the beginning of the lap. Here comes the turn 6-7 complex, where we've seen so much action over the weekend. Bruno Junqueira, his 3rd pole. 2 of them coming on road courses, 1 on the Motegi Japan Oval. He picks up that bonus championship point.
More than the second one, because he's actually the first one that keeps the car straight, the second one make the car jump around. And I tell you, it's very technical. I really love that corner.
Well, and you can't just abort, can you? You gotta, if you make a mistake, you're getting in deeper and deeper. There's no run off road. It's just that wall staring you straight in the face.
And you've got very few laps, so every lap counts.
Oh, heavy over those.
Look at it. He straddled those curves. Those things are about 2.5 inches tall.
This is Alex Tagliani, last year's pole sitter. This is the turn 10 complex near Science World. Here come those curbs Michael bombed. Oh. 61.326 for Alex Tagliani. Meanwhile, Dario Franchitti, 2nd quick in the session at 60.559. You're on board with Kenny Brack. Calvin Fish has more on Dario.
Dario sits patiently in the car. I just spoke to Alan McDonald, his engineer. He said Dario's suffering from power understeer through turns 6 and 8, and that means when he gets on the gas pedal, the car just goes straight towards the wall. They've decided to make a rear spring change, stiffening up the rear spring, trying to get the car to rotate a little bit more through the corner and gain a couple of tenths, see if he can get that time a little bit quicker than D'Amata. Let's go down to Scott.
I'm down here in Vasser's pit. Just came in, parked the car. Everything looks pretty good. They're not quite getting enough downforce on the front. They lowered the front skirts, trying to get a little more front downforce, and also going to a bigger gurney across the back. So they're looking for more total grip out of the car. More front wing, more rear wing, trying to get more total grip. Sitting here on a new set of tires, getting ready to head out here any minute. Derek?
Scott, Paul Tracy has changed his plan. So many drivers went out earlier. He was trying to catch between the two waves. The initial run, then everybody comes in, then they do the last runs. So many guys have now run. They're all coming into the pits. He now wants to try and go and make a run. I think he got a bit nervous sitting on the wall watching so many guys go just that little bit faster. There's prestige here in Vancouver to winning that Greg Moore pole position trophy. He would like his arms around it.
Now we're on board with Kenny Brack. He is the last driver to make his first run besides Paul Tracy, and this is his 5th lap. So the tires should be right at optimal. Kenny catches that second curve a little later than the other guys, doesn't he, Max?
It was off the power quite a lot, and it doesn't look like he has a lot of confidence turning in.
A lot of steering input. The car is very loose.
Kenny scores any points at all.
On board with Paul Tracy. Calvin Fish has more on the altitude.
Well, we're over 2,000 feet higher than we were in Denver, Bob, and that really affects a number of things. Certainly the downforce on the cars. The driver said they struggle with grip through that high-speed stuff, and also the cooling on the car. We heard during that yellow flag lap that Cristiano D'Amata had to lower his res because the engine was showing signs of overheating on the telemetry, and also when PT was in to change that nose, the team had to have him shut down the engine, otherwise he was going to overheat the Honda there as well. So they're really sensitive to this thin air, and they really have to stay on top of all of the gauges.
Thanks, Calvin. Let me correct myself. That is Dario Franchitti we ride with.
And the cooling is not so simple. I talked to Patrick Carpentier, and in the Reynard, they actually have their radiators, I don't want to say blocked off, but they do not have them all the way opened up. Most of the Lolas are running their radiators completely open, or close to completely open, in an effort to make sure they don't overheat. But Patrick says that costs us so much downforce, and we just really can't afford it here. So they're kind of rolling the dice on running their temps right at maximum in an effort to make the car Carpentier either 5th or 6th. So if he can keep running these quick laps, then they'll have another opportunity to do the same. It's almost better if it stays green and they get the yellow at the tail end right before his final stop, so he can continue running on this clear track.
Ooh. Expected to pit this time around. Last lap of 62.1 seconds. Fastest car on the racetrack. The gap about 6.5 seconds to the second place D'Amata. But the piece of racetrack he'll be looking for when he comes out, as Tommy mentioned, 5th or 6th. He has a 30-second lead over Patrick Carpentier in 5th.
Based on the first stop, Cristiano lost about 28 seconds cumulative with his pit.
With everyone going on track, just 7 minutes left, and that's what happens when these guys gamble. But I'm down in the Team Cool Green pit. Dario Franchitti was in. We talked about grip. He is definitely searching for a big spring change here on the blue car. They've sent him back out. Hopefully they'll keep the balance in the car and find that much needed grip around mid-Ohio.
This is down the long backstretch. This is where the field will take the green flag in Sunday's race. All other flagging will be done from the finish line flag position.
It doesn't look like the number of laps will be a factor here, but actually Cristiano perhaps the most affected because he only had 3 laps in the books when he was out. When the red comes out, if you're on a lap and they have to stop it before you finish their lap, they give everybody, they don't count their in lap as a lap against the 15. Now, do you have some more on that down in Cristiano's pit?
Indeed, Tommy. Cristiano is still, despite the lack of number of laps, is very, very confident. He's 7/10 clear of the whole field right now. He came in, Kenny Seebeck told me, he said, we're in total control. We're making a shock absorber adjustment to go stiffer, and we're giving him more front wings. So the Lola here, a bit like Dario Franchitti, they seem to need more and more.
Tire out of the Bridgestones. Their hope, let's get out there, get a rhythm, get a number of laps tied together to get our fastest time, not get caught up in all these reds.
On board now with Tora Takagi. Derek Daly.
Just a quick look at him, Michael. He went against the current grain also by going out as soon as he could in this qualifying session. Kim Green just told me they are very concerned about traffic here. But also, more than that is Michael.
Park to Park Grand Prix of Road America weekend. I'm Bob Varsha with Tommy Kendall, Scott Pruitt, Derek Daly, and Calvin Fisher in the pit lane. And Patrick Carpentier, winner of 2 out of the last 3 races, is all over the track as he struggles to put a time on the board. This is his 4th lap, and one that I think he expected a lot out of. He is currently 7th of the 12 cars who have posted times in a big burst of activity on track. His teammate Alex Tagliani is the provisional pole sitter. Now we go on board with Michael Andretti, who had a taste of provisional pole, but has now been bumped all the way down to 6th. The Andretti family has their own personal chapter in the history of this great racetrack. Look at Mario and Michael's record. 3 victories apiece, along with 3 poles for father Mario, 2 for son Michael. And on this weekend, the newest generation of Andrettis has rolled out. This is turn 9, onto the start-finish straightaway.
Dario Franchitti was in the TV truck. He thought he might be able to get video proof after all these years of the existence of red mist. It's a lot like Bigfoot. Everybody talks about it, but nobody has seen it. He's got the visor cracked, so there's no red mist in there now.
Fastest part of the track. Here comes turn 5. Laps from the maximum pit window. That's why the 32 is written on the hub of Paul's steering wheel. Lap 32, he must be in.
And a lot of the engineers, the people calling the race strategy, have talked to their guys saying you need to close up behind the guy right in front of you. D'Amato's team says we need you closer to Kenny. The answer came back, I am trying.
We'll raise the track temperatures as we go on board with Patrick Carpentier, the winner 2 weeks ago in Cleveland. This is turn 3. Turn 4. Pacific Boulevard North, becoming Quebec Street.
Minus 10.5.
Into a parking lot. Turn 7 and 8. This is 9. And turn 10 outside the Science World Dome. Big curb on the right.
It's big, but it's not real severe, so the guys can get up on there without too big of a penalty.
There's the chicane onto the start-finish straightaway. Headed for BC Place.
Have a look at the board, Pat.
He has more on Scott Dixon.
A little bit on Scott Dixon. We know how good he is. He's a bit of an instinct reflex driver. He grew up on these type of small, bumpy racetracks in New Zealand, so he loves this type of thing. I just spoke to Julian Robertson, who's the engineer for Kenny Brack, and also with Mike Hull. Mike says Kenny, of course, we know, is trying to wait for the specific time on the racetrack. But I said, what is this track like? Is it a Long Beach or what type of setup? He said, absolutely not. This is more like Houston, the old Houston track that we used to use, than anything else, except it's got a little bit more room. Because Houston apparently had bumps just as severe as we're experiencing this weekend.
Paul Tracy bumped back to 10th as Jimmy Vasser leaps up into 6th place. It's old information across the top of your screen. The order is Dixon, Fernandez, Kanaan, Matta, Junqueira, Vasser, Servia now 4th, Andretti 8th, Takagi 9th, Dario Franchitti 10th to Calvin Fish. When we since he tested a Formula One Lotus back in 1994. Let's ride along. This is turn 1.
Watch for the concrete patches that are in virtually every corner. Traditionally, they're a lot slicker. This year, the word is there's not a big difference from the asphalt to the concrete, but you'll still see every opportunity. They'll have the, that was when the road falls away. A little bit of oversteer going down the hill, but at every opportunity, the drivers will try to hook the inside wheel inside of the concrete patch. In years past, where there was very little grip, it was almost like hooking your tire into a groove. It was that dramatic a difference.
A little bit of fuel, which is not for speed on the track, but for speed in the pits. If they have to put less fuel in during a pit stop, that's less time in the pits, which more positions on the racetrack. That's what the drivers are concerned with. That's what the engineers and the teams all concerned with right now.
The car is burning something under 2 miles per gallon of fuel. You could save a lot fairly easily. Working lap number 37, 10 laps from the mandatory pit stop at lap 47. We expect all of the top.
An interesting development for tomorrow, because if you have that much straight line advantage and you're still getting through the corners quickly, I think you'll see a lot of guys run less downforce tomorrow. But the fact that they were able to go that much quicker, still in the low drag setup, is pretty good news. Tony Sacali, his engineer, employed that to good effect. If you remember a few years back when Villeneuve won, I believe it was maybe his first race here, drafted on a restart up the front straightaway, had much better straightaway speed. So Tony Sacali up to his old tricks. And there's a little brow in the center of the carousel, and watch, sometimes the cars get a little loose right here. Not even a wiggle. Oh, there you go. Scott?
Well, Tommy, just like you're talking about, these guys are going to have one downforce setup on the car purely to go as fast as they can for one lap. For the race, it's going to be a different story. They're going to be looking at a couple different things. Fuel mileage, and how is the car going to race against the rest of the traffic. It used to be in days gone by, you put more downforce on to go racing. These days, I'm not quite sure. You just can't afford to give up that straightaway speed. It'll be interesting to talk to these guys as they get ready for the race. A little different setup from qualifying to what they might change.
Over that berm. Be interesting to get Derek's thoughts on that also, to try to figure out, the setups kind of go in phases. And I think the tires, the Potenzas being...
The throttle down longer in 4 and not only got clear of his teammate, but got around the outside of Kanaan.
The sense of speed at this racetrack is just extraordinary. Less than 1.5 miles around, basically flat. And these cars, averaging 210 miles per hour or more, are absolutely shocking in their speed.
You saw Oriol Servia downshift going into turn 1, I believe. Once they get up to speed and through.
This is Kenny Brack. Working his 14th lap, going by Jimmy Vasser.
The track seems a little bit more slippery than the beginning, definitely. Ken is struggling for grip, actually. He's going kind of slow at the moment.
Now we
We'll go to Patrick Carpentier, dead last in the field at 61.870 seconds. Last year, he sat P2 on the front row alongside his teammate Alex Tagliani. Derek Daly has more.
Quick update how costly a small mistake can be. Patrick Carpentier this morning hit the wall in his primary car, damaged the tub so severely he went to the spare car. It has taken him all this session to get the spare car tuned.
He spun it again, Derek. It doesn't look like he hit any. Currently 12th. We go on board with the Canadian.
Now that Flugel he lost just in front of the left rear wheel adds extra downforce, and so he's slightly less overall downforce. It also helps direct the air up over that tire, so maybe an increase in drag as well. But he's not exactly threatening the guy in front of him. Lap 13 is an important lap. That is, or lap 12. That is when the window opens up for these guys who want to do a reverse strategy towards the end. On lap 12, they can make it to the distance on 2 more stops, but for that to work, again, they need to be able to run faster than these guys in front of them. So right now, he doesn't look like anybody's holding him up, so that strategy would just put him off all by himself, and you would expect it to net out about the same unless he can find some speed.
His team owner Barry Green said, "We are going to roll the dice today." Turn 11.
There's one other possible benefit from that strategy, which is very low percentage. If the pace car comes out and they have a situation that's so urgent they have to close the pits right away, and there's a pack-up situation behind the pace car, which is pretty rare. Everybody who has stopped ahead of time is 1 stop ahead of the leaders.
Deal with that problem he has in traffic.
In addition to that 1/3 of an inch of rear tire stagger in this Bridgestone.
And as they accelerate up to speed, look at how much distance that small amount of time translates into when they're up to full speed. That time when the chips were down, Jimmy got into the pits almost exactly the same as Tamada. There was not much to choose between the two of them.
Back in 1999, Adrian Fernandez won this race and set the standing race average speed record at 171.
Having enough grip to maybe give a challenge to Cristiano Tamada, and suddenly we have 2 incidents all down at turn 1, and that puts Tracy barely now inside the top 10.
Look how the driver sits cocooned in there with his knees close together. Very cramped conditions.
I wonder, is there damage on the left side of that car? I'm having a look over here. I don't see anything bent. The first thing to go is that steering arm right there, that little silver one. That's the first thing that usually bends when you have sideways contact like that.
That's Patrick.
It looks good.
Carpentier is ahead of him. That would mean Paul Tracy is 15th. By the way, we'd like to thank our Canadian friends for these pictures provided by Molstar Sports.
So we know he's in brake troubles. And once you get those type of troubles, they usually don't fix themselves. So he's locking up those rear brakes. Jan, you got more for us?
Will expand to 2 cars next year if all goes well. There's Dario Franchitti recovering. I've had a quick half spin there in turn 5. This is 8 and 9.
That was only his second. That was his 3rd time lap, and it's going to be lap 3, lap 4, most likely. That is the hot lap for the tires. So he'll regroup, make sure he has a clear spot, and probably start another flyer right here.
Franchitti stays on track.
And John Anderson just said maybe we tossed a weight. The weights are on the inside of the wheels right in here, and they're used to statically and dynamically balance these racing wheels down. And they are stuck on with adhesive tape, and when they fly off, they can cause a vibration. And Paul, usually the vibration affects the steering more so than anything else. A rear vibration, as John says, can you live with it?
Calvin Fish.
Michel Jourdain is 6th. Mario Dominguez, the only rookie remaining in the race, is 8th. So 3 Mexican drivers in the top 8. On board with Cristiano Tamada.
Once we get to lap 22, the drivers can do 4 equal length stops and they'll be over the 85, somewhere over 21 laps. So at the 22nd lap, I would expect perhaps some of these leaders, anyone who's planning on never running with the full fuel load, to come in at that time.
Busy the drivers are in the car. When he's not shifting and steering, he's adjusting things on the steering wheel.
I'm a little bit surprised that Cristiano has not been chomping at the bit. He's been the fastest car all weekend and looked really good in warm-up. I'm surprised he hasn't been just right behind the guy in front of him, chomping to get by.
See the mountains off to the right of your screen. This is by far the clearest day we've had here in Monterrey. And we have a report of smoke from the back of Adrian Fernandez's car. Once again, our pictures are coming from TV Azteca, so we can't necessarily slap a camera on him when we'd like to. On board now with Fernandez.
Fit. Try the clutch.
Calvin Fish awaits.
Try the clutch.
About the same thing. Oriole, Franchitti, and Tracy. Too much mid to exit push. They're all having the same problem, but they're trying to solve it different ways. Oriole with springs, and the two cool cars are trying to work on putting more front wing. Either way, they're trying to reduce mid to exit understeer. Guys?
All right, thanks very much. You're on board with Dario Franchitti, currently shown 12th on the track where he picked up his first Kart FedEx Championship Series victory.
Mid-corner understeer is often the limiting factor here. It's exacerbated by the really hard braking. There's so much time to be gained under braking. The guys really arrive at the corner, maybe carrying a little bit more speed. So the more you can get that front to tuck, like this part of the corner right through here, the quicker you can go. And usually a little gain at one track might yield a tenth or two. Here, because there's so many corners, a little improvement can often yield a half a tenth or half a second or more without making the car that much better.
You notice no yellow arrows on our top 10 graphic. All these drivers are on track. In fact, the only two.
In this time, Michael had no hope of making, so he just stood on the brakes and just tortured that right front. On board now with Kenny, who's closing in on Michael.
That was the first thing I thought when I saw those pictures. He's going in there at a huge number. Jan Bikus.
Well, we haven't talked much about Kenny Brack today because we were watching to see where Paul Tracy would come out in relationship to our leader, Matta. But he made a 10.7-second pit stop. Before he stopped, he radioed in and said the car is wicked loose. It's all over the place. So I asked the team, did you make any changes? Said no. It was no problem with the car. It's just at the end of the run, the rear tires wear quicker than the front, and everybody's car is getting big time loose.
In the brake zone, Kenny Brack down inside Michael. Michael does not even contest it.
On board with Carpentier.
He's on a flyer. Watch the big step off here. He'll anticipate with his hands there and straighten up so the back doesn't come around. This is a really fast corner, pretty bumpy in the beginning.
Calvin Fish.
Well, after Patrick's first run, he complained of understeer, particularly right in this carousel turn. The track really dictates that, as Tanzan knows. The track falls away there, and in the keyhole, it's very hard to pick up enough mechanical grip to get you through there without the front end of the car washing out.
P1, that one put Patrick up to the top of the time charts.
66.
On board again, looking out the visor of Dario Franchitti.
Look at all that water.
Up to speed, and the airflow helps his visor clear, but not as clear as you would expect. What an exercise.
A lot of spray now coming up from the cars in front of you. Very difficult to see. You can see the rain light just up there, kind of off the left-hand side. That's what we were talking about earlier. That's about all you can see.
Full course caution for heavy rain with 9 laps completo back in 1993, and here in Vancouver 2 seasons ago. Paul Tracy came into the weekend with 222 laps led, but all of them were in his dominating victory on the Milwaukee Mile. These are the first road course laps he's led. Calvin Fish has more on Tracy.
Well, his team have told Paul Tracy, you have a full tank of fuel, go full rich, try and get a gap onto Matta, and he certainly did that when we got back underway. First real lap, when they got back up to speed, he was 3/10 faster than Cristiano.
To correct myself, Paul Tracy also led on the oval at Motegi, Japan earlier this year before suffering a wheel failure.
Wholesale changes on this low lap.
On board with Michael Andretti. Back under green.
In turn 10 or 11 heading into 12, you see them on the red concrete, and they have so much grip there that they have to prepare for when they come off, and so they're trying to do as much work as they can on the grippy red pavement before they get into the stuff and the car just walks sideways out to the wall. Same thing here on the inside of turn 2. They just dive for this concrete. It might be earlier than they want to be, but they just hold on to it. It's like the car hooks onto a groove. It's a dramatic change between the black and the red.
One of the fastest men in the Kart FedEx Championship Series. Michael Andretti has 32 career poles, but he hasn't seen one since Elkhart Lake at Road America back in 1999.
There's almost 3 times as many poles as Paul Tracy, to give you an idea who's number 2 on the active list right now. So Michael, a specialist at qualifying. His game has changed a little bit. He's more of a race day player now, but he does have the speed over 1 lap.
The flag stand. Michael Andretti logs into 10th at 122.730. And that is 3 seconds faster than he went this morning. Sequential shift, push forward to go down a gear, pull back to go up a gear. Notice his right elbow hitting the shift linkage. As fast as Michael is going, he is going backwards. He has been bumped down.
But it's possible if they only they might have just fueled just to the tires. As soon as the tires are done, they might have pulled the probe and been less than a full fuel load. On the steering wheel, I think Dario runs on the bottom LED. You see it's, I think that's an upward counting fuel. We don't know how much they put in, so I think it reached 14.6 is fuel used during this stint. The one at the top is lap time.
Race control reporting Oriol Servia out of fuel down in 14.
Yep, there you go.
Here comes Canada.
What a shame, because Oriol was having a hell of a run.
Paul Tracy is in the pit entrance. Scott Pruitt awaits him.
It differently every time. At Vancouver, people were marveling that he could run his fast time later in the run than everybody else. He could do it on his 5th or 6th lap on the tires. Here, he's able to do it quicker than anyone else. Well, there doesn't seem to be anything they can't do.
Yeah, Tommy, a lot depends on the pressures. I mean, you saw him sliding around there. The thing is, if you start with some higher pressures, you might slide through that window. You know, you'll pass through the optimum tire pressure window, let's say on an earlier lap, and then you've got to come in and bleed them down. You pass the prime, so it depends a lot on what they're doing on pressures.
Watching Jimmy Vasser, we'll clock him through some of the speed traps.
Well, he's moving. Hello.
Coming up on 12 minutes to go in the session. Vasser currently 14th. And he has yet to improve on his performance from yesterday. Carousel. Open that right front wheel as TK described earlier. Whoa, lots of steering input. 67.999, 7 thousandths of a second slower than his best lap in yesterday's first round of qualifying.
So we're still going to get him comfortable. Dario is very happy, and so is Michael. So we need a good race here. We have not had much luck here over the years, and we would love to win this one. And you know, it's a 500 miler, a lot of pit stops. The pit crew have got to be at their best. We'll have the lap regulation first time in a long race like this, so we'll see how that comes into play. And you know, I love it when there's a bit of guessing. So we're going to yell in now.
Up on that curbing. We're going to go on board with Bruno and ride a while to the sounds of speed. So turn up the volume and enjoy a lap of Road America.
Go, Bruno. Let's keep pushing, buddy. Keep pushing.
Paul Tracy's gap over Junqueira.
Pitting in 3.
He and a lot of other people. 2.39 seconds the gap from Paul Tracy back to Bruno Junqueira.
Now turn 1 here, trying to get it downhill till this point. Then they pick up elevation. This one very off camber. Now Kenny's not quite up to temperature here. His tires aren't. He's coming through the hairpin. As he comes to this kink, you'll listen, he breathes out of it a little bit. When the tires are hot, that's easy flat out. Last year with the more boost, it was a bit more of an issue, but coming down here flat in 6th gear, a little bit of rear wheel lockup when you hear the engine go quiet like that. The next complex, 7 and 8, is very much like 1 and 2. Reads as 2 corners, but drives like 1 with a tighter second half. Fast left-hander that you never really get it straight. Have to start braking for turn 10. Curb there that doesn't upset the car much. They might touch the one on the right there a little bit, but here's the thing. Watch where he lifts out of the gas. Bang, straight line, just look straight ahead. Tire wall, no margin for error.
Fernandez now 14th. Having just been passed by Junqueira, drops to the 14th spot. Stadium section. Long right-hander, then a left onto the front straightaway. On board with Fernandez. Notice the pad he uses to shield his right elbow from the shift linkage. Sequential gear shift. Forward to go up a gear, or down a gear. Pull back to go up a gear.
And you watch, he's very deliberate when he lets go between shifts because it had an electronic spark interrupt where they just pull on that and it cuts the engine for a split second to allow the dog rings to disengage and for it to fall into the next gear. So that's why he lets go.
Three gears down.
You see Michael right behind Adrian on course.
It's Michael. Fernandez just ahead. This is 14th and 15th on the racetrack.
And they bump up against it instead of spiking over it. When you get the tires sliding here, they don't slide a little bit. The thing gives up completely, either a big front end slide or a big back end slide, which is why Christian's so good on slick surfaces. Very smooth.
That was Jimmy Vasser through the trademark turn here in Denver.
Turn 6.
The mile-wide corner. Oh, he's got a spinner up ahead of him. Local yellow. Here's a look at the new rules of the road in kart road course qualifying. A 60-minute session. When it was introduced in Montreal last week, it was 15 minutes of open practice, followed by a 10-minute break and 35 minutes of qualifying, with 30 minutes guaranteed to be green flag. This weekend, it's been modified to a 10-minute practice, 10-minute break, and 40 minutes of qualifying. Of course, the usual red flag rules are in place.
Now, exactly. Nothing Dario can do will be changed by what Paul does. Their courses are set. Right. Now, whichever one executes better, Dario has a huge upper hand because of that earlier call.
The gap is now 15.6 seconds from Paul Tracy to Dario Franchitti. Tony Kanaan, 39 seconds and change behind, so the gap from him to Tracy is opening up. Kanaan not likely to be a threat when Paul comes in for this quick stop. Tracy likely to come out in second place.
That last lap, 1.2 seconds quicker than Dario, and he is definitely going to keep the heat on here. It's up to 16.8 seconds, the gap. I think he needs probably 25, 26. This is heroic stuff.
The team is in the pit lane. Approaching the pit entrance. Doesn't take it that time by. This is working lap number 85.
You see that traffic up ahead. Paul will probably, as soon as he catches that car, they're laid out waiting for him. The minute he gets impeded in any way, he will be in the pits.
So the numbers have been crunched in the pits. It'll be a timed fuel stop. Mario Dominguez pits again.
Pulled out a half a second that lap.
Gap is now 17.
The apex of these corners, on board now with Jimmy Vasser. Flat left-hander, down by the front pit straight.
drivers, including Paul Tracy, went off this morning. Tracy was off backwards on the left side there in the gravel trap. There's the concrete patch again.
See the drivers try to line up the right front wheel between the concrete patch and the curbing to try to hook the car and make it grip.
Tires squeal down there. Looking at the top 10 on your left, that is live. The yellow arrow means that driver is in the pits. So Junqueira, Nakano, and Dixon, as well as Tony Kanaan, are all on track. We've got just under 16 minutes to go. Drivers left, onto the start-finish straightaway. Aurora Parkway. Left. Into the parking lots for the Pepsi Center. Now onto another street. Again, concrete. Soon coming back to asphalt right there. Vasser currently 11th.
He is running out of laps. He is almost at his 15-lap maximum. So this is late in his second run.
Adrian Fernandez, who just came into the pits, hurled the steering wheel out of the car, climbed out, and stomped away. He is a very unhappy driver. On board with Dario Franchitti.
Handedly in the lead right now. Very much in control. What a day he's had, up and down. He probably thought his race was about over on that stall.
And we talked about Darren Manning being the hometown guy, Team St. George. They asked Dario if he was Team St. Andrews. He says, well, my sponsors might have something to say about that, but unofficially, Team St. Andrews.
And what about, you think, his closest friends? What do you say, a couple hundred friends and fans here?
Everyone's your buddy when you can get tickets.
I saw him on Thursday and asked him how many tickets he needed. He said too many.
Advantage of his driving style, which is really burying the car into the corner on the brakes and having the car be stable. Michael is a very confident driver right now. I think he's got potential to get up on the front two rows today.
The run I'm waiting for, all the guys are going to be going for it on their second run, but Paul Tracy's second run, the worst he can be is second. He's here in Canada, wants that front row. There's an extra point at stake. Paul Tracy's second run is going to be an absolute blinder, but the danger perhaps is trying too hard, right, Max?
Yeah, maybe he can try too hard, but could be a good satisfaction for him and for Steve, the Greg Moore Trophy, Steve was the engineer of Greg, and it's just a very, very special thing, I hope that they can get it.
Good point. Derek Daly.
No.
Okay, on board with Kenny Brack, Calvin Fish. All right, from now on, you pit reporters have to raise your hand and be recognized. Actually, our producer is now taking the blame. I have more fun blaming the pit reporters, but there it is. Anyway, on board with Kenny Brack. He was third quickest in provisional qualifying. He's now back in 10th spot at 60.979. Lots of steering input from Dario Franchitti. You ride with him down the backstretch at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. I'm Bob Varsher with Tommy Kendall and Townsend Bell, coming in off an emotional victory 2 weeks ago in Vancouver, which he dedicated to his late friend Greg Moore. Dario Franchitti now second in the championship, just 38 points behind Cristiano Matta. He's working his third lap.
Townsend, you were pointing at something on the steering wheel.
What were you? The pie wheel that a lot of teams use, and you can see the lap time for the previous lap, the 70.4, and the 3 something is probably going to be his segment update on where he stands against his fastest lap, whatever they have set in the system. At least that's the way we run it. So we'll see when he comes across the line. If you're up, just like you see on TV, it'll give you a minus segment in that box, but he might be running something else.
Pi Electronics, a division of Ford Motor Company's premier performance group. It's also including 30 miles per hour. You ride with Michael Andretti, a two-time pole sitter here. That is Canada corner, up under the Billy Mitchell Bridge. Up to turn 14. This is where the cars are timed, not at the start-finish line. 3 career victories here.
Lap. Quick time is 49.7 for Dominguez.
2 laps in the books, and Michael is still P2 to Dominguez by 0.03 of a second.
And trying to save fuel. Initially they told Paul to lean it out a little bit so they could save some fuel, and all that really does mean when he comes into the pit they spend less time putting the fuel into the car, but they felt they were losing too much time. Cristiano immediately jumped about a 0.4 of a second jump on him every lap. They told him to richen it back up. They couldn't afford to play too many games at this stage of the race, Tommy.
Yeah, it's really starting to unfold, and Tagliani is losing distance to Dominguez. So the guys to watch are Dominguez, who's the furthest up of the guys who stopped early, and then Takagi and Andretti, who are just at the tail end of that group, who can go a full 11 laps further. So you've got kind of 3 sets of guys you need to keep your eye on to see how it breaks out. And again, Cristiano has clear chat, Dominguez has clear chat, and so but Michael and Takagi do not.
9 laps away from the end of that first 32-lap window. It's BC Place and now GM Place. The Twin Stadiums here in downtown Vancouver loom over this 1.78-mile 12-turn racetrack. On to Pacific Boulevard North goes Paul Tracy. Again for me.
Thank you, Chip.
All right, thanks, Derek. You see the time remaining less than 7 minutes, 15 seconds, and you also saw why Paul Tracy is so much fun to watch.
He's frustrated, but he does have get the style points for the session. So he got in trouble from the instant he turned in, either on a downshift, the car was starting to spin from the moment he turned in. Slow corner, no damage done. He just kept his foot in it, kept it lit up, and probably it'd be interesting to check that lap time. Probably only lost about 3 or 4 seconds.
Yep, his best is a 111.7 that last lap, 115.138. And now Cristiano Matta in the Chevron car is about to run out of laps, about to complete his 14th. He'll have to head for the pit lane, and he remains P2.
This next split will be our best indication if he's got a shot at it. In green.
Oh, yeah.
Less than a 10th ahead of Kenny Brack's pace, but this is where he was so strong before.
Yes. To the top of the speed charts, Cristiano Matta, 1 minute 10.1 seconds, 114.928 miles per hour. Kenny Brack still has a few bullets in the gun. He's got 3 hot laps left to try to knock Matta off the top spot.
And that 15 laps is kind of a tease as far as I'm concerned.
This lap showing you P1.
Now that's a very important transmission because, like I said, it's a tease because really you only get 14 laps. You have to use the 15th to get to pit lane.
In case you recall, this is normally the Texaco Haviland car. Texaco and Chevron are now our corporate entity. So in the West Coast events, it runs in Chevron livery. Elsewhere in the Haviland colors. As you can see, on a cool-off lap, slow in the speed traps, almost a second off the pace at the various timing strips, and now Matta will head in. So the order is now Matta, Brack now second, Tony Kanaan is up to third, Patrick Carpentier fourth. We're on board with Brack.
And he is hustling it big time. There's a slower car up ahead that he's catching pretty quickly. Ooh. That's Michael, I believe.
Swarming on the brakes.
Last lap, Kenny, last lap.
I don't think that's correct.
That put him to P1.
Yep.
And he has 1 more lap, I believe, to run. It's not going to be. That's going to have to be it because Michael's in the way. So his last lap is going to be scrubbed. So everybody else will have a shot at it. There's only, let's see, who else has laps? You got Carpentier with laps, Junqueira with laps, Fittipaldi with laps. So it's going to have to come from one of those 3 guys, I believe.
So here's an example where Brack basically lost his last 2 laps. He was going to have to come in on 15 anyway, and now 14 is toast. He may as well come in at the end of this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Alex Tagliani up into the 7th spot, dropping Townsend Bell to 8th. Jimmy Vasser is 9th. Adrian Fernandez is 10th. Paul Tracy has managed to hustle his way up.